Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku had Omnitrix and had massive harem? Part 22. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is Dekiru 10 by Phantomdanger. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Momo Yaoyorozu sat at her desk, chin resting lightly on one hand as she stared at the Tachaden arm lying in front of her. It took up nearly half the desk. She had already created a few small instruments and tools to examine it, but the more she studied, the more questions she had. I still can't believe this thing rebuilt itself from just a single hand, she said quietly, brushing her fingers along the outer casing. And it held its own against Izuku. Melissa had mentioned May found it tossed aside in a junk heap. That part bothered her the most. Why would anyone just throw something like this away? Momo asked aloud, frowning. This level of tech, it's not just rare, it's revolutionary. Her curiosity finally got the better of her. She carefully lifted the arm and slipped her hand into the socket. A soft whir started up, followed by a metallic click as the gauntlet suddenly adjusted, tightening around her forearm. Momo's eyes widened. Oh, it fits. The interior components shifted subtly, hugging her arm like it had been molded just for her. She flexed her fingers, and to her surprise, the arm moved smoothly in sync with her own. That's actually kind of amazing, she said, turning the wrist and watching how naturally it followed her motion. She opened her palm, revealing the small circular device nestled in the center. As she flexed her fingers, a faint red glow began to pulse from within. Momo blinked. Oh, that's new. The light quickly intensified, her eyes widened. Wait. Instinct took over. She thrust her arm forward just as a beam of red energy surged out, slicing across the room in a blinding flash. It tore through her window and part of her balcony wall, leaving a smoking crater outside with bits of stone and metal raining down. A stunned silence followed. Smoke curled around her furniture. Her papers were scattered across the floor. What in the world? She hurried to the blown-out window, heart racing, and looked down. Kanoko Komori, Kuroiro, Yanagi, and Tokiyami stood frozen below, staring up at the wreckage with wide, horrified eyes. Ah, I apologize, Momo called down, her voice cracking slightly as she forced a strained smile. I was testing something. Everything is under control. They continued to stare. I'll repair it after class, she added quickly. The group slowly turned and walked off toward the school building, clearly unconvinced but choosing not to ask further. Momo sighed and pressed a hand to her forehead, muttering under her breath, brilliant, Yaoyorozu. Truly brilliant. Before she could begin assessing the damage, her door suddenly flew open with a loud bang. Standing in the doorway were Izuku, Kyoka, Kendo, and Ochako, each one staring in stunned silence at the smoldering hole where her window and part of the balcony used to be. Smoke still curled lazily into the room. Momo flinched slightly, then straightened with forced grace, subtly sliding the Tachaden gauntlet behind her back. Ah. Good morning, everyone. I can explain. Why is there a giant hole in your room? They all shouted in unison. Ochako's jaw dropped. Momo, your balcony is missing. Is everyone all right? Izuku added, already halfway into the room in concern. Momo let out a nervous laugh, subtly angling her body to block the gauntlet behind her. It's not as bad as it looks. I was just experimenting with a new creation. Kendo raised an eyebrow. Did the experiment involve heavy artillery? The group moved forward as Momo tried to keep her posture calm, but her eyes betrayed her panic. Well, it was supposed to be inert, I didn't think. She trailed off as Izuku's eyes caught the edge of the Tachaden gauntlet sticking out from behind her back. Momo. He started cautiously. She coughed, tucking the arm out of sight in one smooth motion. Anyway, we really should be heading to class, shouldn't we? Don't want to be late? She spun around and started ushering them toward the door with forced enthusiasm. Hey, wait, Kyoka protested, digging her heels in. Let's talk about the explosion first, Kendo added, but Momo kept pushing. No need, all handled now. Thank you for your concern, Momo said quickly, her cheeks bright red. The door slammed shut behind them. Inside, Momo leaned against the door with a heavy sigh, staring at the ruined balcony. I need to be more careful. Before she looked at the gauntlet touching the metal. Maybe if I can figure out how to rebuild it. Then. Her thoughts drifted back to Izuku. Principal Nezu sat comfortably at the conference table, his ever-present cup of tea in hand. Beside him stood Cementos, arms folded, an expression of disappointment. Powerloader was still out of commission, recovering from injuries sustained during the Ghost Freak incident, so Cementos had stepped in to supervise the support course, though he clearly wasn't thrilled about it. Across from them, Mei Hatsume sat nervously, her knees bouncing and her hands folded tightly in her lap, trying and failing to look innocent. A few hours earlier, Cementos had walked into the support studio, coffee in hand, expecting a quiet morning of paperwork and maybe the sound of drills. What greeted him was anything but. The studio looked like a mech had declared war and lost. Walls were cracked, the floor was cratered, and shattered support tech lay in molten heaps. The courtyard looked like a battle between monsters. It didn't take long for Mei to confess, though she very conveniently left out any mention of Izuku Midoriya, as if his involvement had suddenly slipped her mind entirely. Her baby, one of her inventions, had gone rogue, rebuilt itself from scrap, and tried to reenact Terminator. And all of this had happened after hours, unsupervised, and in direct violation of at least 3 school safety protocols. Yep. Hatsume Mei was, by all accounts, monumentally screwed. Yep. Totally expelled. Definitely. No doubt. Mei's leg bounced under the desk, her eyes darting between Nezu and the charred, kabuto-shaped robot head resting ominously on the table. Nezu cleared his throat gently. Miss Hatsume, may I ask where you acquired this particular piece of technology? Mei forced a grin. You, a junkyard? Ish. Definitely not, stolen. Just discarded brilliance waiting to be found. Cementos raised a single eyebrow. Nezu tilted his head curiously. And you rebuilt it on your own? Mei hesitated, scratching the back of her head. Well, sorta. Melissa Shield helped a bit, only with diagnostics. I did all the creative reintegration myself. At that, Nezu's entire face lit up like a power grid coming online. Marvelous. He beamed. For a first-year student to resurrect a T-construct from a severed head. Quite the feat. Inwardly, Nezu was impressed. Level 12 technology. Reconstructed without formal tools, and reverse-engineered by a high school student. Mei caught the sparkle in his eyes and leaned in with a smile. So, pretty impressive, right? It'd be a real shame to expel a brilliant young inventor with such promise, wouldn't it? Nezu chuckled. Yes it would. Mei's face lit up. So I'm off the hook then? Nezu's voice was chipper, almost musical. Oh, no 1 week of house arrest. Mei's expression went blank, her pupils shrinking. Then, with the force of a cartoon villain denied world domination, she screamed. No! Cut to Izuku walking down the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. He suspended me, Izuku. Suspended. Can you believe that? Mei's voice practically exploded from the speaker. Izuku gave an awkward laugh, dodging a few support course students who were still sweeping debris. I mean, you did kinda blow up the entire lab, and part of the courtyard. Technically, Mei huffed, her face buried in her pillow, you did that when you transformed into water hazard. So, really, this is your fault. Izuku stopped dead. How is this my fault? You're the one who tried to reenact Terminator. From the other side of the call, Mei flopped onto her bed with a defeated groan, fists pounding the mattress. Shut up. It just is. Now I'm trapped in my room like some villain, and they took all my babies. All of them, Izuku. Who does that? Who just steals a mother's children? The kind that watches said children level half a building? Izuku muttered under his breath. I heard that. He flinched. Sorry. Mei groaned dramatically. You're not helping. Izuku chuckled softly as he rounded a corner. Talk to me, Mei suddenly said. Huh? I said talk to me. I'm bored, I'm alone, and everything that makes life worth living is now locked in a faculty storage room. You have to keep me company. All day. Izuku stared at his phone. I have class, Mei. Then whisper, or text, or carry me around like a guilt-based Tamagotchi. I don't care. You owe me emotional compensation. Now, I expect hourly updates, deep thoughts, maybe a few dramatic readings of support gear manuals to lull me to sleep. Izuku groaned. Why do I feel like I'm the one being punished? Izuku sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose as Mei continued ranting in his ear, her voice a whirlwind of dramatic despair. And then Nezu had the audacity to say I need oversight, like, duh, I've known that for years. That's what the babies are for, Izuku. They keep me centered. You can't just take away a girl's emotional support prototypes. Sorry, Mei. Gotta go. Izuku blurted, inching toward the classroom door like it was a lifeboat. What no? Mei wailed through the phone. Don't leave me alone with my thoughts, they get loud. Click. Izuku sighed in relief as he lowered his phone, sliding it into his pocket just as he stepped into the classroom. The door clicked behind him like a cell door locking, though in this case, it felt like freedom. Class dragged on for the rest of the day. Aizawa, his usual tired expression in place, watched the students the front of the room until his phone buzzed. He glanced down, his brow creasing slightly. Without a word, he turned and stepped out into the hallway, the door sliding shut behind him. Kyoka's Jax picked up something subtly. Curious, she extended them through the wall just enough to eavesdrop. She picked up Aizawa's voice first, gruff and sharp. What do you mean a level 12 Tachaden unit was activated on campus? Kyoka blinked. Wait, what? Outside, pacing the hallway with a hand to his ear. You're telling me one of those killer machines was let loose inside UA? How did it even get here? Midnight's sultry tone followed. Looks like one of the support girls found a busted head in a junkyard. Thought it was salvageable. Turns out, surprise, it rebuilt itself and went murder happy, all that fun stuff. Kyoka's eyes widened slightly. That explained the scorched courtyard. Who neutralized it? And why the hell weren't our systems picking this up? We didn't get a single alert. Midnight's tone was playful, teasing. Sounds like some brave, bold, maybe even criminally attractive student stepped in to help the poor girl. Blew it to bits. Very heroic. Aizawa let out a groan, audible even through the door. Namori, I'm not in the mood. Relax, Eraser. No one got hurt. Well, nothing permanent. Midnight's voice softened. And our security didn't catch any of this? Aizawa asked flatly. They were disabled, Midnight said, now sounding more serious. Whoever got it running managed to bypass our internal alerts and black out the surveillance grid. No cameras, no alarms, no sensor logs. Just a big hole in the courtyard and half a support lab gone. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. You're sure it wasn't just Hatsume? Sweetie, as scatterbrained as she is, even she doesn't know how to override UA's entire grid. Someone else was involved. Aizawa sighed, and Kyoka barely caught his mutter, we'll deal with that later. She quickly retracted her Jax before he came back in, pretending to be deep in her notes though her heartbeat had kicked up just slightly. As lunch rolled around, Kyoka couldn't shake the conversation she'd eavesdropped on earlier. The weird name Tachaden kept echoing in her mind. Sliding her tray onto the table beside Izuku and the others, she decided to bring it up. Hey, she said casually, this might sound nuts, but I think there was a robot loose on campus last night. Few minutes of explaining. Ochako nearly choked on her juice. Wait, what? Are you telling me a killer alien robot was just walking around UA and no one said anything? Kyoka nodded, tapping her chopsticks against her tray. Yeah. I overheard Aizawa talking about it on the phone. Sounded serious, like, high-level threat serious. Tachaden? Iida repeated, adjusting his glasses. That sounds highly concerning. Todoroki rested his chin on his hand. That would explain why the support course workshop looked like it got hit by a missile. Ochako blinked, then sighed. Seriously, I just thought Hatsume blew something up again. You know, her usual Tuesday. Yeah, same, Kyoka muttered. Honestly, wouldn't be the first time she set off an explosion the size of a classroom, huh? She stopped mid-sentence, catching sight of Izuku and Momo sitting stiffly across from her, both wide-eyed and drenched in nervous sweat like kids caught red-handed next to an empty cookie jar. Okay, what's up with you two? Kyoka narrowed her eyes. Izuku groaned, slumping in his seat as the group's attention zeroed in on him. Reluctantly, he began explaining how Mei had snuck into his room during the night, practically dragged him out in his pajamas, and roped him into fighting the Tachaden before anyone even knew it was active. How was I supposed to know it was practically an alien murder machine? Izuku groaned, slumping forward as if the weight of the universe, or at least Mei's latest disaster, had landed squarely on his back. Across the table, Momo shifted in her seat, noticeably uneasy. Izuku caught the nervous flick of her eyes and the faint guilt behind them. He remembered the severed Tachaden arm she'd taken to study. Please tell me she's planning to give that back, Izuku thought anxiously. Kinda curious what they are, though, Ochako said, tapping her chin thoughtfully. Everyone turned their attention to Izuku. Wait me? Why are you all looking at me? He asked, blinking rapidly. You're the alien guy, Todoroki replied in his usual deadpan tone, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Izuku slouched deeper into his chair. Just because I can turn into aliens doesn't mean I automatically have a PhD in galactic technology. But you do know more than the average person, Momo pointed out, resting her chin on her palm. And I can't say I'm not interested in the inner workings of a sentient alien automaton. Kyoka's eyes suddenly lit up with an idea. She pulled out her phone. I think I know someone who would know. She tapped a button, and the phone started to ring. The group leaned in, watching as the screen lit up with a new face, pink skin, silver eyes, and a warm smile. Hey, Esther, Kyoka greeted casually. Izuku perked up at the sight. Esther. Before anyone could react, Kaminari poofed into existence beside him like he had teleported. My radiant, pink-skinned goddess. Wah! Izuku nearly fell off the bench as Kaminari screamed in his ear. Esther giggled on the other end of the call. Hey, Denki. Kaminari opened his mouth to launch into a flirt-filled speech, but Kyoka's hand shoved his face out of frame before he could get a syllable out. Go fall in love somewhere else, Kyoka muttered, holding him back with one arm like it was routine. She sighed, pinning the phone between her shoulder and ear as Kaminari kept trying to sneak back in. Anyway, we actually called to ask you something. Esther raised an eyebrow. Shoot, do you know anything about something called the Tekkadan? Momo asked. Esther raised an eyebrow, her voice casual through the screen. Yeah, Tekkadans. They're basically giant murder bots. Industrial-grade war machines built by the weapon masters of Tekkadan, real charming folks. Depending on the model, they're not that hard to break, but even a simple one can level a building if you're not careful. Everyone at the table blinked. Wait, what? Ochako leaned forward, mouth slightly open. Murder bots. Did you say weapon masters? Ida's glasses flashed with anxiety. As in, there's an entire industries that just manufactures weapons like that. Yup, Esther said casually, resting her chin on her hand. Whole economies based around it. You ever heard of a dehydrated Tekkadan army cube? No, you don't wanna. Trust me. Ochako leaned in, brows furrowed. Dekiru just fought one last night. It showed up on campus and wrecked part of the support course. We were hoping you could tell us more. Esther perked up. Oof, on campus. That's not normal. But yeah, standard Tekkadan robots are tanky and hit hard, but they're predictable. Built for blunt force and intimidation. Real issue is when someone hires the Tekkadan weapon masters to customize one. Izuku nodded. The one I fought didn't seem all that smart or adaptive. Just big and destructive. Esther giggled. Then it was probably a standard unit. Those aren't the brightest, very point and shoot. Kind of like throwing a sledgehammer at a problem until it breaks. Most don't adapt unless you're dealing with a custom commission. Momo leaned in slightly, curiosity piqued. So someone could actually order a stronger version. Yeah, and those are a nightmare, Esther said, more serious now. You beat it once, it comes back, and however you beat it won't work next time. This was most likely a standard factory model that broke loose or got lost. It happens sometimes. Iida stiffened. People lose Tekkadan robots. That's absurd. They're walking WMDs. Esther shrugged. Hey, humans misplace loaded guns all the time. Tekkadans are just a more dramatic version of that. Everyone at the table groaned in unison, though no one could argue the logic. Yeah, but that's a giant alien murder robot, Kyoka said flatly, Jack's twitching. There's kinda a difference between forgetting your switchblade and misplacing a walking tank. True, Esther conceded with a shrug. But they don't exactly have a return to sender feature once they go rogue. Momo nodded beside her. I guess, but still, how do you deal with one usually after taking it down? Tekadons are made of self-replicating nanite alloys. You leave a single piece behind like a hand or a finger and it can rebuild the whole unit. That's why you have to neutralize them completely or vaporize the remains. Izuku immediately shot a look at Momo, whose eyes widened a little too innocently as she glanced anywhere but Izuku. He gave a stiff, uneasy smile and turned back to Esther. So, hypothetically speaking, what happens if someone didn't know that and just kept apart? Esther gave him a look. Well, best case scenario. Nothing happens. Worst case, you wake up to a Tekadon trying to punch you through your dorm wall. Kaminari popped up beside them out of nowhere, all stars in his eyes. Hey, my beautiful galactic queen. Wanna hang out sometime? Or, teach me about space murder bots. Esther giggled. Still smooth, Denki. Time skip. Please tell me you plan on getting rid of that Tekadon arm, Izuku said, his brows furrowed in concern as he glanced at Momo. She rubbed the back of her head, clearly guilty. The two walked side by side down the hallway toward their heroics class, trailing just behind the rest of Class 1A. I am going to, she muttered, eyes shifting away. Eventually, Izuku's head snapped toward her, a mixture of disbelief and worry flashing across his face. Momo. I know, she said quickly, holding up her hands. Dangerous piece of alien tech that could rebuild itself, and how did Kyoka put right, might go full Terminator and Sarah Connor your ass. She tapped her chin with exaggerated thoughtfulness as if trying to downplay the seriousness. Izuku sighed, his shoulders slumping as he glanced at Momo. Momo, please. Momo exhaled slowly, as guilt crept onto her face. I know, it's just. Her eyes flicked briefly to the Omnitrix on Izuku's wrist. This is the first real alien tech I've had the chance to study. If I could just understand how it's built, or what materials it uses. If I figure this out, maybe I can even help you better. She balled her hands into fists, then folded them together tightly in front of her like a desperate scholar begging for one last chance. Just let me examine it for a little while, Izuku. Please. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, visibly uneasy. I don't know, Momo. That thing's Tekadon. It's literally a ticking time bomb with a grudge. Just for a bit, she said quickly, then hit him with it. The look, big, wide eyes, slight pout, head tilted just enough to make her seem harmless. The infamous Yaoyorozu puppy dog eyes. Izuku immediately flinched like she'd activated a quirk. No, stay strong. You can resist. She batted her lashes. Nope, I'm done. Fine, he muttered, defeated. Momo's face lit up as she sprang forward, wrapping her arms around him in a quick, excited hug. Thank you, she chirped, bouncing a little before letting him go. I promise I'll report everything to the teachers later. They rounded the corner just in time to see Aizawa standing near the training grounds, waiting for them with his usual sleep-deprived glare. Everyone collectively groaned the moment they saw Aizawa standing at the front of the training grounds, silently praying it would have been All Might instead. Aizawa's tired eyes narrowed, the familiar red flash of his quirk immediately silencing the class. All right, enough whining. We're already behind schedule, get it together. Mr. Aizawa. Toru raised her hand. Where's All Might today? Yeah, and what about Auntie X? Izuku added, blinking up at him. Will you be continuing this oddly formal presentation of yourself? Iida added, gesturing sharply toward Aizawa's appearance. He was still in a full suit and tie, paired incongruously with his signature capture scarf. Aizawa's eye twitched. This is my usual teaching attire, he lied flatly, glaring daggers at Iida. It was the kind of glare that said, say one more thing and I'll make you run until your legs disintegrate. Before anyone could press further, Xylene walked onto the grounds. Aizawa stood up straighter on instinct and cleared his throat, coughing once into his fist. You're late, he managed stiffly. My apologies, Xylene replied. I've been preparing the next training module. Thank you for holding things down. It's no trouble, Aizawa said quickly, avoiding eye contact. His capture scarf shifted slightly like it was trying to crawl off in embarrassment. Suyu raised her hand. So, Xylene-sensei, what exactly are we doing today? Xylene clasped her hands behind her back. Today's exercise will differ from the standard heroics curriculum, she said. For this session, you'll be working without your quirks. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the classroom like a wave hitting the beach. Even Kaminari blinked like he'd misheard her. Wait, seriously? Kirishima blinked. No quirks at all. No quirks, Momo repeated, brows knitting. But much of our combat strategy is built around them. Bakugo's glare darkened, arms crossed tightly as murmurs broke out around the room. Fighting without quirks. Mina tilted her head, frowning. That kinda sounds weird. Like, what's the point? Tokiyami nodded solemnly. It is a path of discipline. But unconventional in a school for heroes. I mean, I get training fundamentals, Kaminari said, scratching his cheek. But not using our quirks at all. Isn't that holding us back? Suyu said flatly, feels a bit like swimming with one leg tied. Ribbit. Aizawa opened his mouth, already inhaling to silence the rising murmurs, but Bakugo beat him to it. Bullshit, Bakugo growled. Xylene raised an eyebrow, mildly intrigued but not surprised. He stomped forward, fists clenched. Aizawa instinctively moved to stop him, but Xylene lifted a single hand to halt him. You're seriously gonna have us train without our quirks? Bakugo snapped, what the hell's the point of that? We're supposed to be fighting damn alien scum, not running obstacle courses blind. Murmurs rippled through the class. Several students shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to agree. I mean, he's not wrong, Kaminari muttered. No offense, but without my electricity I'm just a chicken magnet. It does seem weird, Suyu said quietly. Shoji and I can't really turn off our quirks. That might leave the others at a serious disadvantage. Shoji nodded silently beside her. Iida cupped his chin, thoughtful. While I understand the concern, we should consider the possibility that this lesson is meant to cultivate adaptability. We should not dismiss it prematurely. I dunno, man. Kirishima rubbed the back of his neck. It's not a terrible idea. Could be useful to know how to fight if you ever lose access to your quirk. Kinda like backup strength. Bakugo snarled. Yeah, well maybe you losers are fine with backup strength, but real heroes need to win. And you don't win by holding back your damn quirk. The class went quiet. Xylene exhaled slowly, tilting her head. Since you're so sure of yourself, Bakugo, she said evenly, why don't you prove it? Bakugo blinked. The hell does that mean? Xylene raised her hand and gestured toward a nearby structure. A full replica of a bank stood across the field, the word bank clearly written above its double doors in bold block letters. Today's lesson is a simulation, Xylene announced, folding her arms across her chest. A standard hostage robbery scenario. Your job is simple. Stop the robbery and protect the civilians. Bakugo scoffed again, jabbing a thumb toward his chest. I'm still suspended. I'm not even supposed to be doing hero work, remember? Aizawa let out a tired sigh. You are. But consider this a special case educational. Xylene stepped forward, her tone taking on an edge. You're free to use your quirk, Bakugo. In fact, I insist. That made him pause. You're serious? Xylene smirked knowingly. Very. After all, if quirks are all that matter, then you should breeze through this, right? Bakugo's eyes narrowed, but he didn't respond. Time skip. Bakugo stood outside the simulated bank, finally back in his hero costume after weeks of suspension. As he cracked his knuckles, smoke curling off his gauntlets. Inside, the rest of Class 1A watched from outside. Man, can't say I haven't missed watching Bakugo go nuclear, Jiro muttered, arms folded. Mina leaned forward, chin resting in her palm. 1,000 yen says he just levels the building civilians and all. Bakugo shot a venomous glare through the window. I heard that, raccoon eyes. With a growl, he blasted through the bank entrance, a loud boom echoing as smoke flooded in behind him. The sudden explosion made several students cough and wave the smoke from their faces. Subtle as ever, Kaminari wheezed. Izuku's heart nearly stopped. What? That's all, he whispered, shocked. Toshinori Yagi. The skinny man caught Izuku's stunned expression and winked playfully, a finger to his lips as if to say shush. Izuku swallowed hard, keeping quiet. No one else knew Toshinori's true form had always been hidden. Huh, so you're the villain. Bakugo sneered, his palms sparking as he took a step forward. Did they drag some dying skeleton out of retirement for this crap? Toshinori stood his ground, smiling gently, almost amused. Kirishima leaned closer to the monitor, puzzled. Anyone else think that guy looks like he needs a hospital more than a hero fight? Why's there some old dude in a bathrobe playing the villain? Mineta asked with a grimace. Ochako frowned with concern. Is that safe? I mean, will Mr. Yagi be okay against Bakugo of all people? Toshinori chuckled lightly, raising a single hand. Oh, don't worry about little old me. I've got a few tricks left. That only made the others more confused. Bakugo growled. TCH, whatever. You asked for it. Oh, don't worry about little ol' me, Toshinori said with a wink, raising his arms dramatically. I'm more durable than I look. Bakugo grinned with open hostility. TCH, then I won't hold back. But before he could make contact, vents along the upper corners of the room suddenly hissed open. Bakugo blinked too late. FWOOSH. Pressurized torrents of ice-cold water blasted down from hidden nozzles, hammering him from all sides. Wah! Bakugo was caught mid-air, violently thrown off course and slammed into a support column. He gasped, sputtering as water slammed into him again, dousing him completely and ricocheting him off the walls like a ragdoll. He scrambled to his feet, coughing, dripping wet, his gauntlets uselessly clanking as he tried to stabilize himself. The hell, he shouted. What was that? Whoa, Kaminari blurted. Did the room just attack him? The deluge stopped just as quickly as it started. The temperature inside the bank plummeted, visible frost forming on the floor and windows. Bakugo's teeth chattered as he tried to ignite his quirk again. Nothing. He stared down at his hands in horror. And no spark. What the hell? Izuku's brows furrowed. They used the environment to counter him. The water killed the nitroglycerin sweat, and the cold suppressing his ignition. Bakugo looked at his palms in horror, smacking them together, trying to get a spark. What the hell's going on? Why won't it go off? And just as panic began to rise, Toshinori gave a single cough before breaking into a deep, theatrical villain laugh. Muhahaha, he bellowed, straightening his back dramatically. You fools walked right into my trap. Prepare yourselves for today, the heroes die. Bakugo let out a growl, sparks still fizzling uselessly at his damp palms as he lunged forward. His boots slammed against the wet floor, gauntlets clanking as he swung a wild, heavy fist at the old man in front of him. Toshinori shifted effortlessly to the side, the punch whiffing past his bony shoulder. Stay still, you twiggy bastard. Bakugo snapped, throwing another punch. Again, Toshinori ducked under it with almost lazy ease, his lanky frame moving with a surprising grace that didn't match his skeletal build. From behind the safety glass, the class watched with wide eyes. Whoa, Kirishima muttered, that old dude's got moves. Right, Shiro said, leaning forward slightly. Didn't think twigs like that could dodge Bakugo. Izuku, meanwhile, had his face nearly pressed against the glass. Despite the situation, he was grinning like a total fanboy. He's still got it. Bakugo lunged again, teeth bared in frustration. Stop running and fight me, damn it. Toshinori gave him a light smile. As you wish. Then, with a flash of movement, he suddenly ducked low, pulled something from under his cloak, metal braces knuckled across his hand and slammed his fist into Bakugo's jaw with a thunderous crack. A shockwave rippled outward, tossing Bakugo across the room like a sack of bricks. God damn it, Bakugo spat, skidding through puddles as he crashed into a teller's desk. Over the comms, Xylene's voice came through. Quirks are not always applicable. Situations may arise where they are suppressed, nullified, or simply ineffective, she said, as she watched the spar unfold. As demonstrated, by one Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo glared at the speakers. Observe. Bakugo Katsuki highly aggressive, powerful yes. But remove his quirk, and he becomes a wild animal swinging in the dark. Bakugo grit his teeth and charged again, furious. Toshinori dodged cleanly, jabbing his ribs, slipping around him. And this is the case for most of you, Xylene continued as Bakugo slipped on the damp floor, his footing thrown off by the cold. You've trained your bodies to amplify your quirks, but not to operate without them. You've made your powers a crutch. Bakugo growled. Like hell I need a crutch. He leapt again, throwing a desperate haymaker only for Toshinori to pivot, then uppercut him square in the jaw. Bakugo hit the ground hard, coughing as cold air spilled into his lungs. Quirks are not always applicable. Situations may arise where they are suppressed, nullified, or simply ineffective, she said. Bakugo charged in again, soaked, shivering, and furious. He swung wide, missed. Another punch ducked. The old man barely looked winded. Xylene's continued. How do you expect to be heroes, she asked, when your first fallback is always your quirk? Bakugo swung, missed. Bakugo growled, frustrated, soaked, and shivering before Toshinori stepped in with a clean uppercut that sent him flying off his feet. Wham! He hit the floor with a grunt and didn't get back up. A few minutes later, Bakugo sat back down among the rest of Class 1A, arms crossed, jaw clenched, a fresh scowl glued to his face. His hero costume was still damp, his pride even more so. The class stood nervously in front of the bank's entrance as Aizawa, now finally back in his usual scruffy hero outfit, stepped forward to address them alongside Xylene. Xylene folded her arms as she paced in front of the group. She began pacing slowly in front of them, as demonstrated by one Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo clicked his tongue, muttering something under his breath that sounded like, "TCH, old bastard caught me off guard." Xylene continued, completely unbothered. Your quirks are tools. Useful, yes. Powerful, absolutely. But too many of you treat them like a crutch. Her gaze swept across the group. Strip those abilities away, and what's left? Most of you, flailing, panicking children. A few students winced. Kaminari let out a quiet groan. Jiro crossed her arms, looking away. Even Mina looked sheepish. That's why your next training scenario will test more than just what you can do without your quirk, Xylene said. It's designed to challenge your adaptability, to show how you react when your quirk becomes ineffective. The class shifted uncomfortably. The memory of Bakugo getting uppercutted by a man with the physique of a scarecrow was still fresh in their minds. But among the apprehension, something else stirred. Curiosity, even excitement. Iida straightened, raising a hand. Then are you teaching us to identify and compensate for the weaknesses in our own quirks? Xylene nodded curtly. That's part of it. Understanding your own limitations is the first step toward overcoming them. She reached down and pulled out a bundle of long, polished staffs, tossing them toward the group with casual efficiency. They clattered at their feet. But first, she added, you're changing out of those costumes. Go put on your gym uniforms and meet me in the combat gym. Huh, Mina blinked. Wait, we're not doing another scenario. No, Xylene said bluntly. You're going to learn how to fight without flash, gadgets, or powers. Basic hand-to-hand. If you can't defend yourself without your quirk, you're not ready for real combat. Izuku smiled at the staff in hand as clenched it hard. ... Location: Higashi City, Katsushika District, Kochi Prefecture. Two girls stepped out of Kawazumi High School, a decent enough place. Not a hero school, not top tier, but still one of the better ones in the area. Mr. Takahashi dumped another mountain of homework on us, grumbled the shorter of the two, a 5 feet 2 inches girl with short black hair, teal eyes, and pink nail polish chipped at the edges. Her backpack bounced against her hip as she trudged down the steps beside her friend. The other girl, with long dark brown hair and a petite, doll-like figure, didn't respond. Her attention was fixed on her phone, thumb lazily scrolling. The black-haired girl glanced over and narrowed her eyes. You're not seriously looking up Midoriya again, are you? The brunette flinched, quickly turning the screen away. I mean, maybe. The other girl rolled her eyes with a dramatic sigh. Seriously, Sake, I don't get why you're still obsessed with that guy. Sake looked down, twiddling with her sleeves. It's just kind of incredible, you know. He used to be Deku, the guy who cried over everything. Now he's, like, famous. Strong. Legit. High above them, unnoticed, something with blue fur clung to the side of a school building. PFF'd. Whatever, the short-haired girl muttered, rolling her eyes. Honestly, it just pisses me off. If he had some badass quirk all along, he should have just shown it. Maybe then we wouldn't have. She trailed off, shrugging. Bullied the crap out of him. The other girl offered with a nervous laugh. She smirked. Yeah, pretty much. Sake gave a small, nervous laugh. I mean, yeah, but come on, Hana, we weren't exactly nice to him either. Hana shrugged, unapologetic. Not my fault he made himself an easy target. You remember how weird he was back at Aldria, always scribbling in that nerd book and muttering to himself like some kind of psycho. Sake bit her lip but didn't argue. The sound of their footsteps echoed down the empty back stairwell. From above, the blue creature ape-like but strangely agile moved from wall to beam, tail curling like a pendulum. Hana hesitated. You don't think we were a little harsh on him? Sake scoffed. What, are we rewriting history now? He didn't even have a quirk then. What was he even doing trying to play hero? Always sticking his nose into stuff that had nothing to do with him. Hana frowned. That doesn't mean. He lied, girl. Sayaka's voice grew sharper. He had a quirk all along, obviously. You don't just get a quirk like that out of nowhere. So either he faked being quirkless, or he was hiding it. Either way, that's on him. From the shadow of a nearby ledge, the blue monkey creature crept closer, claws silent against concrete, tail wrapping around a metal pipe for balance. Hana frowned, brows knitting as they walked. I guess, maybe he lied. Maybe, Sake scoffed, flipping her hair back with a snap of her wrist. Come on, Hana, the guy suddenly has, 10 quirks now. And he just magically mastered them in under a year. Please, either he was faking it the whole time or he's some kind of masochist who gets off on being beat to hell. Hana let out a nervous giggle, trying to go along. I mean, remember that one video of him in Bakugo? The one that went viral? Saki's lips curled into a wicked smirk. That one. I still can't believe someone filmed it. It was brutal, Hana murmured, looking down. The comments were insane. Sake leaned closer, her voice shifting into a mock pathetic tone. Kachan, please stop, you'll hurt him. She whined theatrically, then laughed. He sounded like a wet tissue trying to stand up to a freight train. Hana's laugh was smaller now, more uncertain. Still, it kinda sucked to watch. Sake rolled her eyes. Who cares? Besides, she said with a smug shrug, he's fine now, right? Mr. Hero Prodigy. All-powerful, stupid, famous girls lining up to suck his dick. I'm sure he's really torn up about a couple of kids being mean to him. Hana's smile faded, her fingers tightening slightly around her phone. Sake didn't notice, or didn't care. And if he was that strong all along, then honestly, that's on him. He let everyone walk all over him. It's not my fault he was too pathetic to stand up for himself. Hana chuckled, brushing her hair behind one ear. I guess. Thwip. A sudden, sharp snap of motion and both girls were violently yanked upward, slammed against the underside of the bridge in a web-like net, stuck fast like flies in a trap. Ah, what the hell? Sake screamed, squirming in panic. What is this? Get it off, get it off. Hana writhed, the sticky strands digging into her arms and legs as she kicked frantically. Let go of me, help, someone heroes, anyone. Thud, a blur of blue fur, forearms splayed out midair before it landed hard in a low crouch directly in front of them. The creature slowly rose, towering over them, its striped tail curling behind it. Clawed fingers cracked one by one, knuckles popping. Saki's voice trembled. D Deku. Ochako hit the mat with a solid thud, the air puffing from her lungs. Ow. Okay. That one hurt, she muttered, quickly rolling back onto her feet. Izuku was already in motion, his stance low and shifting, eyes tracking her like a hawk. She darted in with a feint, forcing his guard to shift before she pivoted on her heel. You're getting better, he said, adjusting his footing. Don't hold back. Ochako shot back, a grin tugging at her lips. Izuku lunged forward, aiming for a double-leg takedown, but she twisted, caught his momentum, and redirected it. Her knee snapped up. Crack, clipping his chin and snapping his head back. He grunted, dazed. As he stumbled, she twisted, slipping behind him and throwing her legs around his neck and fell backward. The momentum pulled him down with her. Her thighs locked tightly around his neck, one hand bracing the floor while the other gripped her ankle to reinforce the choke. Izuku hit the mat face first, stunned, his hands instinctively flying up to try and pry her off. "Sorry, Dekiru," she said, a little breathless but smiling, "I kinda needed that win." Izuku's fingers clawed at Ochako's thighs as his face turned red, not just from the choke. "Gunhead taught you all that?" he wheezed out, his voice strained. "Why yeah." Ochako's face flushed with effort, and maybe a little flustered embarrassment, as she squeezed tighter. "Been working on grappling a lot lately." Her heels dug in, and she shifted her hips to sink the choke deeper. Izuku's vision blurred for a second, but he twisted his hips and rolled to his side. With a grunt of effort, he managed to break her leg lock, slipping free with a gasp of air. They scrambled apart, both panting, flushed, and smiling before charging. Across the room, wooden staffs clacked together. Momo and Todoroki stood several meters apart, staffs at the ready. Todoroki was the first to move, his staff slicing horizontally in a fast, clean arc. Momo ducked low, her ponytail sweeping with her as she spun under the strike. She pivoted and swept at his legs with her staff, forcing him to leap backward in a backflip. Without missing a beat, he stepped forward and brought his staff down in a mark aimed at Momo's shoulder. She rolled to the side, the tip of his staff narrowly missing her. The moment she was back on her feet, she pressed the advantage, lunging forward, staff sweeping in from the left. Clack, wood met wood, both of them grunted from the impact. They moved in a rapid flurry, Shoto stepping in with short jabs, Momo countering with deflections and quick pivots. Shoto ducked under a high swing and retaliated with a low side sweep aimed at Momo's knees. She jumped, and landed just beyond his reach. He advanced again, pressing forward, but she parried his next thrust and shifted her grip. With a deft twist of her wrists, Momo caught the end of his staff in a lock, trapping it. She planted her hands on the ground and launched into a backflip, both feet arcing upward, one catching him clean across the jaw. Whack! Her heel caught the side of his face mid-kick. Shoto staggered back a step, blinking, his head snapping to the side. He exhaled slowly, rubbing his jaw. Solid hit. Xylene stood beside Aizawa, arms folded as she observed the students sparring. "Some of them aren't bad," Aizawa muttered, his tired eyes narrowing as Izuku launched a swift roundhouse kick at Ochako. She ducked under it with a surprised yelp, then grinned and countered with a sweep that Izuku leapt over with a laugh. "And some are downright painful to watch," Xylene replied dryly, nodding toward Kaminari and Kirishima. The blonde threw a loose jab that Kirishima easily dodged, slipping behind him to lock in a light-hearted but firm chokehold. Kaminari tapped out instantly, pouting as Kirishima ruffled his hair. Aizawa sighed. "So, what's the reason behind the no quirks rule today?" Xylene nodded. "Hisashi used to say quirks were nothing more than tools. That we have to be the heroes." "I remember." Aizawa gave a small melancholy smile. Xylene allowed herself a small smile. "Exactly. I want to see what they're capable of without leaning on their powers. Especially him." Her gaze settled briefly on Izuku, who was now locked in a clinch with Ochako, both of them straining to outmaneuver the other. If they understand their strengths without relying on what makes them special, maybe then they'll start seeing their quirks, and in his case, the Omnitrix, as just one part of what makes them a hero and stop using them like a crutch, then maybe, we'll start seeing some real growth. "Growth in what way?" Aizawa asked. "Take Denki Kaminari, for example," Xylene said, just as Kirishima easily sidestepped Kaminari's punch and dropped him into a headlock. The blonde tapped out almost immediately and rolled off, groaning. During the USJ attack, he ran around like a headless lepidopteran, she continued, arms folded. Aizawa gave a quiet nod in acknowledgement. He couldn't fully discharge his electricity, mostly because he couldn't compensate for his lack of control and didn't think outside the box. In the end, Jiro had to shove him into a villain just so he could use his quirk without frying her and Yaoyorozu. It worked, Aizawa noted. He basically became a living taser. Sure, but the is that he had to be used like a tool because he couldn't act on his own. It was clear then, And now, that he lacks any real combat skill. No grappling, no form, not even basic close quarters instincts. If he had just a bit of training, he could have taken out 2 or 3 villains without even needing a full discharge. So you're trying to figure out what kind of fighting style fits each student best, Aizawa said. Now you're catching on. Xylene offered him a faint, satisfied smile. Class 1A dragged themselves back to their dorms. None of them had suffered severe injuries that would warrant recovery girl, but some of the class had been more frustrated by the entire lesson, especially without using their abilities. Bullet shit, Bakugo said as he kicked the door open of the dorms. Bakugo. Iida snapped, his arms already chopping through the air. Must you damage school property every time you're upset? This behavior is unacceptable. Bakugo scoffed and shoved past him. TCH. Then maybe the damn lesson shouldn't have been so useless. I thought it was kinda fun, Kirishima offered with a small grin, trying to lighten the mood. Even if I got thrown around like a rag doll. Izuku rolled his shoulders with a tired sigh. Yeah, I mean, can't say it wasn't productive. Kyoka gave Kaminari a firm slap on the back, smirking. Compared to everyone else, Spark Plug, you basically got folded like a lawn chair. Kaminari let out a groan, rubbing the back of his neck. You don't have to say it like that. Izuku turned to Mineta, genuinely surprised. Still, I'm kind of impressed with how you handled Shoji. The class collectively paused, replaying the memory. Mineta, of all people, had managed to stay out of Shoji's grasp longer than anyone expected, zigzagging, diving, and scrambling out of reach. He didn't land a single hit, not even close, but compared to most of the class, especially without quirks, he had held out better than anyone, even Izuku. Mineta puffed out his chest slightly. I told you, being a pervert gives incredible agility. Plus, fear's a great motivator. Ribbit. To be fair, me, Koda, and Shoji did have an advantage, Tsuyu said, her tone calm but honest. We can't exactly turn off our quirks, so the whole, no quirk, rule didn't apply to us. Koda nodded silently beside her, eyes wide with faint guilt. It was pretty easy to overpower most of you, Tsuyu finished. Iida nodded solemnly. A fair point. But, ever the optimist, raised a fist with enthusiasm. Thus, we should let this be a valuable lesson for us all. Facing physically superior opponents should become our new standard. It builds character as top heroes. Bakugo let out a low, irritated growl from the side. Kyoka crossed her arms, shooting him a sideways glance. Dunno why you're so pissed. You didn't even join in. Too busy getting benched. Bakugo's eye twitched. Watch it, earlobe bitch, he snapped. Charming as ever, Kyoka muttered under her breath, barely batting an eye. Izuku snorted under his breath but stiffened slightly as Momo leaned closer to him, cupping her hand over her mouth as she whispered, honestly, I'm kind of disappointed he didn't join. Kicking his butt would have made my whole day. Izuku blinked, then chuckled softly. He probably would have thrown a tantrum halfway through. Ochako, walking just behind them, joined in with small smile. I bet 1,000 yen he would have used his quirk the second he started losing. Izuku glanced at her with a grin. That's a pretty safe bet. That's a sucker's bet, Kyoka tossed over her shoulder. Of course he would. Bakugo doesn't know how to hold back or follow rules. 10 seconds into the match, tops, Mina added. As if on cue, Bakugo was already halfway up the stairs, muttering furious insults under his breath, each step heavy with aggression. I hear you extras. The girls chuckled at Bakugo's retreat, their moods lightening as they headed toward the common room. Izuku turned to Ochako with a warm smile. By the way, you were awesome during the spar, he said, scratching his cheek. Your time with gunhead's really showing, you've gotten way better. Ochako's cheeks tinted pink as she looked away bashfully. Gee thanks, though being tossed like a ragdoll by you wasn't exactly fun. I didn't mean to throw you so hard. Izuku said quickly, hands waving defensively. You were just, surprisingly light. Before the moment could get any more awkward, Toru popped in between them with a cheerful bounce. Ooh, that actually sounds fun to me. Midoriya, maybe you can teach me some moves later. Izuku blinked. Yeah, Sure, I wouldn't mind. Yay, Toru did a gleeful hop. We could totally set something up. Just the two of us, unless. Oh, don't mind if I join you, right? Ochako cut in quickly, stepping closer with a smile that turned slightly bashful. We could totally spar together. Then, she leaned in closer to Izuku, her voice dropping to a whisper. Or, maybe, it could just be the two of us. Izuku's eyes widened, a faint red creeping up his neck. He turned to her like she'd suddenly grown a second head. Huh. Ochako's face burned red. I didn't mean it like that. I mean I did but, not like, She covered her face with both hands. Before the moment could settle, Mina leapt into the conversation, literally, swinging an arm around Izuku's shoulders. Sparring sessions with my favorite people. Heck yeah, count me in. Toru pouted slightly. Hey, I asked first. Oh relax, we'll all get a turn, Mina said with a wink, as she hugged Izuku a little tighter than necessary. Kyoka, watching with a smirk and a faint pink hue on her cheeks, she stretched one of her jacks forward, looping it gently around Izuku's collar and tugging him toward her. Whoa, Izuku yelped as he stumbled forward, nearly face to face with her. I guess I wouldn't mind joining too, she muttered. I mean, she added quickly, trying to act cool but clearly flustered, I'm not the best at hand-to-hand, so, maybe we could train a little. Just the two of us. Izuku looked between all of them, utterly overwhelmed, as Toru crossed her arms with a dramatic huff. Izuku's face flushed deeper, heat rising to his ears. Something about what Toru said kept echoing in his head. Other girls. That phrase hit him like a slap across as he suddenly realized just how many girls were paying attention to him lately. The doors of Heights Alliance swung open with a loud creak. Everyone in Class A turned toward the entrance, and immediately fell silent. Class B dragged themselves in like survivors from a battlefield. Some were wrapped in bandages, others had visible bruises, and a few looked like they'd taken a direct hit from a Nomu. A hush fell over Class A as they watched in stunned silence. The few from Class B still standing staggered toward the couches or beanbags, collapsing with groans and exhausted grunts. Whoa, Zero blinked, lowering the remote. What happened to them? Most of Class B didn't answer as Itsuka Kendo stumbled in last, flopping onto the couch like she'd been flattened by a truck. Kaminari leaned over to whisper, did they just come back from war? Kendo lifted a hand weakly and muttered, alien drills. With Xylene. First one. Oh, Izuku said softly, eyes widening. That explains a lot. Jiro winced from where she sat, earbuds still in. Yeesh, they look worse than we did. Yui Kodai, looking a little green, slowly sat down against the wall, clutching her head. Vilgax drawn. Overwhelming numbers. Reiko gave a small, barely audible groan beside her. They sent flying hornets that attacked from all angles. Our class doesn't have enough long-range or high-speed quirks to keep up. Abara slumped into a chair, brushing ash from the ends of her singed vine hair with a miserable frown. Those unholy machines singed my vines. Every time I regenerated, they torched them again. It was like battling blasphemous furnaces. Zero whistled low. Yikes, and here I thought we had it tough. Xylene is on a whole different level, Kendo muttered, eyes still closed as she hugged a cushion to her chest. No breaks. No room for mistakes. Your aunt is scary. Izuku couldn't help but not argue. She tore us apart during the review, Yui added in a flat tone. Even Monoma shut up, Reiko whispered. A collective wince rippled through Class A like a reflex. Well, can't say I miss hearing him go off about how Class B's the superior class, Kaminari muttered, leaning back on the couch. Mineta cupped his hands around his mouth with a wicked grin. Yo, Monoma, what happened to all that trash talk? Cat got your ego. Monoma, curled up in an armchair with an ice pack on his forehead, barely lifted his head. He glared in Mineta's direction, but only muttered something under his breath too faint to hear. Mineta smirked in triumph. He's broken. Victory. As the friendly trash talk picked up between both classes, Izuku's phone buzzed quietly in his pocket. Curious, he fished it out and glanced at the screen. Abara. If it's not too much trouble, I'd like to speak with you. In private. His brows rose slightly in surprise, then his gaze flicked across the room. Sure enough, Abara sat off to the side, cheeks tinged a faint rose as she looked down at her own phone, then up, catching his eyes with a shy, hopeful glance. Izuku's breath hitched for a second, heart thudding a bit faster. Sure, he mumbled instinctively, before quickly texting back. Izuku. Sure. He stared at the emoji combination for half a second before silently screaming at himself. Why did I use the thumbs up? And the smiley. That's so awkward. But then he saw it. Across the room, Abara was gently covering her mouth, the corners of her lips twitching as she tried to suppress a giggle. Izuku's heart skipped. His face went red. Why is that adorable? Dekiru, Ochako asked, noticing his flustered expression. Nothing. Just, class group chat, he lied with a nervous laugh, slipping his phone into his pocket like it had just burned him. Later, it was already dark outside. Class A and B were gathered in the dining area downstairs, the murmur of laughter and clinking plates echoing softly through Heights Alliance. Izuku moved like a black cat through the halls above, his full cowl crackling faintly as he leapt the final flight of stairs. He skidded to a halt just outside the Class B girls' dorm wing. Midoriya, Abara whispered, peeking out. Her face was already faintly red. Without another word, he slipped inside, gently closing the door behind him. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. The silence between them was thick, charged, and Izuku stood awkwardly near the door, shifting from foot to foot as he glanced around. Her room was neat, as expected. I can't believe she actually let me into her room, Izuku thought, heart pounding. Especially someone as reserved as Shiozaki. Ahem. Abara cleared her throat softly, gathering herself. She straightened her posture, graceful but visibly anxious, and took a few steps closer. Her eyes finally met his, though her cheeks remained red. I apologize for calling you here in such a clandestine manner, she said gently. I wished to speak with you where we would not be overheard. Izuku nodded, swallowing back his nerves. It's okay. I didn't mind. I mean, it's not like I was busy or anything. He laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. Then he asked, more softly, so, did you need something? Abara hesitated, her hands folding together at her chest as she looked down. Yes, I've been reflecting on what happened in the hot spring. Izuku's face turned a blazing shade of red, eyes wide as the memory of the hot spring came crashing back like a slap to the face. Her soft body pressed against him, the weight of her on his lap, her soft ass grinding slightly on him, and worst of all, her naked form, bathed in steam and moonlight. His heart nearly exploded. Oh, right. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. I didn't mean to, gah. He stammered, hands flailing wildly as if trying to physically swat the memory from his head. I didn't see anything on purpose. I swear. Abara let out a quiet sigh and turned her head, eyes closing for a moment as though seeking patience. Midoriya, must you flail every time something remotely intimate is mentioned? She said clearly frustrated. You're making it worse. Izuku stopped mid-motion, frozen with his hands halfway to his face. Sorry, he mumbled. She turned to face him fully now, the pink on her cheeks betraying her own unease. Given the compromising nature of what happened, she began slowly, and the fact that you've now seen me in a state reserved for future matrimony, she cleared her throat, looking away. It's only proper that some form of atonement take place. Izuku blinked, confused. Atonement. Yes, she said, firm but awkward. A gesture. Something respectful. Perhaps an offering of your time. Like community service? He asked, tilting his head. No, not. Her lips pursed. I'm saying that you should offer me the chance to know you better. In a more conventional setting. Like an outing. An outing, he echoed, blinking. Like, with friends. Or. Abara gave him a flat look. No, Midoriya. Something personal, where two people spend time together. Alone. Izuku stared for a beat, then his jaw slowly dropped as the dots connected. Why you mean, date? Abara's blush deepened as she folded her arms tightly beneath her chest. Yes, a date. You will take me out this weekend, she declared. Izuku's eyes nearly popped out of his head. What? A date, shouldn't we? I mean, don't we need to talk about this more or? There's nothing more to say, Abara interrupted quickly. I'll plan the event, or we can discuss the details over text. Right now, however, she coughed lightly, trying to mask her nerves. It is improper for a boy and girl to be alone in a room at this hour. Wait, hold on. Izuku started, flailing as she began to usher him toward the door. Thank you for your understanding, she added hastily, her hand on his back as she guided him out into the hallway despite his protests. With one final push, she shut the door behind him. And wear something casual, she called out from behind it. Izuku stood frozen for a moment, staring at the closed door in disbelief, his mind still catching up with what had just happened. Inside, Abara slowly slid down to her knees, her back against the door. Her hand rested over her heart, which pounded hard against her ribs, thump thump thump, echoing so loudly she feared it might shake the walls. What did I just do? She whispered to herself, face burning, a small embarrassed smile tugging at her lips despite everything. ... Izuku walked back to his room, his face still flushed. What just happened? He thought, his heart pounding in his chest like it was trying to escape. He ran a hand through his hair, replaying the last few minutes. I mean, I kind of owe her, right? Especially with how religious she is, and with what happened in the spring. Then, like a spark in the back of his mind, Toru's came back. Other girls. His eyes narrowed slightly. What did she mean by that? Beast. His phone buzzed, dragging him back to the present. He fished it out of his pocket and glanced at the screen. A new post had popped up on HeroNet, the anonymous community board where civilians and pros sometimes shared tips, sightings, or confessions. Unknown user. Sometimes karma's a bitch. Izuku's blood ran cold. 2 girls, strung up in thick, sticky webbing, hung like discarded dolls from the side of a pedestrian bridge. Blood ran down their legs and arms, matting their clothes and pooling under them. One had a nasty gash on her forehead, while the other's arm looked twisted in a direction it definitely shouldn't bend. Their limp forms dangled as emergency responders crowded around the scene. Izuku's eyes narrowed. He couldn't immediately identify the victims, but something about their faces seemed familiar. Then, another message appeared. Unknown user. Don't worry. I'll save the best for last. Got some old scores to settle. For now, I'm just busy ruining my old man's life. But they're next. The faint hiss of a respirator pulsed rhythmically through the dimly lit room, blending with the low hum of softly flickering monitors. A tall man in a crisp black suit sat alone in a dark room illuminated by a bank of screens. On one, Tamura Shigaraki lounged on a battered couch, lost in the world of an old RPG. The man's gaze drifted lazily from one feed to the next. Another screen flickered softly, a liquid-filled containment tube illuminated by a dull violet light. Inside floated a man with flowing white hair, his eyes closed, as if in hibernation. A third showed a girl on a rooftop controlling wind currents around herself like it was second nature. She laughed as a floating soda can landed gently in her hand. All for One let out a slow sigh. He watched the flickering monitors with mild interest though his ruined eyes could perceive nothing, his other quirks made up for the loss. The door hissed open with a soft pneumatic sound. How are the other prospects coming along? Came the familiar voice of Dr. Kyudai Garaki, as the old scientist shuffled inside. All for One's lips curled faintly. They possess such delightful potential, such fascinating quirks, he mused. If only I still had that magnificent overhaul quirk in my grasp. I'd be using it already. A dry chuckle came from Garaki as he adjusted his glasses. I did advise you to claim it when the chance first presented itself, he said lightly. Another low chuckle vibrated from All for One's throat. Yes, but I wanted to let him grow. Let the quirk ripen, perhaps even reach the point of awakening. Patience, I thought, would yield greater results. His voice dipped into a colder tone as he turned his head slightly toward Garaki. But hindsight, as they say, is cruel. Especially when one finds himself in this unfortunate condition. All Might made sure of that. Garaki gave a sympathetic grunt, stepping up beside him to glance at the monitors. Still, you've always known how to adapt. And now, We have more than just one option. True, All for One murmured, his tone laced with approval, but none of them possess the same raw hatred as Tamura. None carry that hunger, and none could stand against the current One for All holder. Garaki adjusted his goggles with a hum of agreement. Ah, the ninth, quite the anomaly, isn't he? The wielder of both One for All, and if the rumors hold, the Omnitrix. What incredible fortune! All for One scoffed. Fortune? No, that boy is the universe's cruel joke at my expense. Even now, he's grown powerful enough to destroy Zakar. Especially after Zakar. Yes, Garaki hummed, eyes glinting behind his lenses. You mentioned he allowed that creature to take his body willingly, in exchange for his classmates' lives. All for One was quiet for a moment. Then, he offered himself without hesitation. Foolish. A pause. Then darker, quieter, but telling. Indeed. Garaki adjusted his gloves. A selfless gesture, but an exploitable weakness. His desperation to protect especially those he's grown attached to could easily be turned against him. He has the heart of a hero, All for One said softly. Then, colder, but in Zakar's defeat, he proved something else. The boy is capable of killing. All for One sighed slowly. And what's more troubling, he's beginning to suffer the same affliction I've endured for generations, haunted by the vestiges of past quirks. Just like me, soon, he'll start to. Beep beep. An ear-splitting alarm cut him off. One of the side monitors flared red, sirens blaring across the chamber. Both men turned to face the screen. It crackled, then locked onto a live feed from one of All for One's underground orphanage bunkers. A tremor rippled through the image. Then, boom. Without warning, a blazing figure of green fire surged through the corridors, unstoppable, turning solid steel into molten slag. Children looked up in terror as the flames twisted and danced around them, not harming them but sweeping them away in a howling tornado of fire. Garaki leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The ninth. Izuku paced nervously in front of UA's main gates, the morning sun casting long shadows over the quiet campus. It was the weekend. Most students were either relaxing in their dorms or out enjoying their free time. But Izuku, he was stuck walking anxious little circles near the gate. His fingers fiddled with the edge of his jacket as he glanced at the time again. A date? With Shiozaki-san, he murmured, cheeks already a little pink. I can't believe I'm actually going on a date with Shiozaki-san, he thought, heart thumping a little harder. Is this really a date? He took a deep breath in. Okay, calm down, he muttered under his breath. It's just a normal outing. With a classmate, who's really pretty, and very religious, and formal, and, oh man, what if I mess this up? His pacing picked up. Come on, Midoriya, breathe, he muttered to himself, running a hand through his hair. The mental image of Abara popped into his mind, serene, composed, and then immediately, his brain jumped to her sitting on his lap in the springs, naked, her skin. Gah, focus, he yelped, shaking his head rapidly. His face flushed with color as his heart pounded harder against his chest. No matter how many villain attacks or high-stakes fights he had faced, this felt way more terrifying. What kind of date is this even going to be? He wondered, scratching his head. Is it gonna be all proper and formal? Like a tea ceremony or a garden stroll or something? He pictured the two of them seated beneath a cherry blossom tree, sipping herbal tea with little crustless sandwiches, and her laughing gently behind a raised hand and eating vegan treats. Wait, is she even vegan? What if I order the wrong thing? Should I have asked? His thoughts spiraled, the nervous energy bubbling up more and more. Do I offer to order something without sauce? He groaned internally, rubbing his temple. It wasn't just that he was nervous about the date part, though that was enough on its own. It was the realization that he really didn't know much about her. Sure, they were friends now, and he admired her strength and resolve, but beyond their few close interactions, he didn't really know the details. She's so calm, composed, faithful. And then there's me, pacing around like a headless bird. He sighed and glanced down at his phone for the time. There were still a few minutes to go before their agreed meeting. I just hope I don't screw this up, he muttered aloud. Dekiru. Izuku jolted at the sound of Ochako's voice, spinning around to see her approaching with Mina, Kyoka, and Momo in tow. Oh Ochako, Momo, Juro, Mina, he greeted with a wide, slightly too enthusiastic smile. The girls were dressed casually and looked like they were about to head out. Where are you off to? Momo asked politely, tilting her head. Izuku froze like a deer in headlights. I can't just say I'm going on a date, especially not to Yaoyorozu. I'm just, waiting on someone, he said, rubbing the back of his neck and laughing nervously. Gonna go help my mom with some stuff. Yeah, you know, errands and mom things. Momo blinked. Oh, that's thoughtful of you. Kyoka raised an eyebrow, arms crossing loosely. Helping your mom on a weekend morning. With what exactly? Izuku winced. His heart pounded in his chest. He was sure Kyoka could probably hear how nervous he was with her quirk. Well, yeah, he laughed nervously, already sweating. You know how it is. Moms and stuff. So where are you all headed? Shopping run, Mina said, stretching with a yawn. Snacks, shampoo, boring stuff. Plus Suyu asked us to pick up some special cold cream for her skin, Momo added. Girl stuff, Ochako said simply, with a slight shrug. Nothing too interesting. Izuku nodded rapidly, inching to the side like someone trying to quietly escape a minefield. Sounds important. I hope you all have a good time. From the corner of his eye, Izuku spotted Abara approaching the gates, dressed neatly in a casual but elegant outfit. He gulped hard. Well, better not keep her, keep my mom waiting. He blurted. Gotta go. See you guys later. Before anyone could question that slip up, he took off with a nervous wave, practically jogging in Abara's direction like he was running from an awkward press conference. The girls stood there, blinking after him. That was weird, right? Kyoka asked flatly. Definitely weird, Mina said, hands on her hips. But probably just classic Midori stress. He is kind of high-strung. I'm sure it really is a family thing, Momo offered thoughtfully. He always makes time for his mother. Ochako nodded slowly, watching him from the corner of her eye. Yeah, probably. Mina nudged her. You say that like you don't believe it. I didn't say that, Ochako replied quickly, then walked off with the rest, brushing her hair behind her ear. Come on, let's hit the station before the lines get long. Izuku dashed toward Abara and skidded to a clumsy stop just in front of her, panting as he tried to catch his breath. Shiozaki, he wheezed, bending slightly as he placed his hands on his knees. Why did I run? That made me look even more suspicious. Oh, Midoriya-kun, Abara said softly, a faint blush rising to her cheeks. Izuku finally looked up and his breath hitched for a completely different reason. She stood there quietly, dressed in a light cardigan over a dark, flowy dress with leafy patterns near the hem. Her black leggings peeked out beneath the skirt, matched by a simple pair of dark boots. A small purse hung from her shoulder. Izuku's eyes momentarily trailed over the outfit before he realized what he was doing and snapped his gaze upward, face instantly burning. Wow, you look really nice. He blurted, flustered. I mean, not that you don't always look nice. Just, extra nice today. Date nice. Not that I mean sorry. Abara giggled quietly, her blush deepening as she looked to the side, fingers brushing a strand of vine back behind her ear. Thank you, she murmured. You look very nice as well, Midoriya-kun. Izuku's heart did a full somersault. Gee, great. Should we get going? He asked, still trying to act calm despite raging butterflies in his chest. Abara nodded as they left, walking towards the train station. Kyudai Garaki typed frantically, fingers flying across his keyboard as red alerts blinked across every screen. Behind him, the steady tap, tap, tap of all for one's finger against the armrest echoed like a metronome of irritation. Have you deployed the Nomu? All for one asked, voice cold and controlled but tight with impatience. Why yes, I've sent them, Garaki stammered, sweat collecting at his brow. But there's a problem. He motioned to the largest monitor. On screen, a Nomu containment facility somewhere on the outskirts was being torn apart. Boom, boom, boom. Glass shattered. Containers ruptured as a blue blur tore through the facility like a living missile, ripping through machinery and bodies with terrifying precision. A winged bat-type Nomu descended, shrieking through the air to intercept. The blur curved mid-air, spun and then slammed a heel directly into its skull. The Nomu was launched across the facility like a ragdoll, crashing through machinery with a bone-rattling crunch. The feed wobbled under the force of the destruction. He dares to attack one of my sites, All for One said, voice low with contempt. He's grown bolder. Garaki stared at the screen. That form, it's the one he calls Fast Track, isn't it? All for One didn't answer at first, watching the blur tear through another Nomu like it was paper. Before he spoke. Yes, All for One said. He's pushing it further now. With One for All amplifying his output, I estimate he's moving at roughly Mach 3, maybe more. Garaki's eyes flicked to another feed, trying to reroute power to defensive systems. But how did he even find this facility? All for One was quiet for a moment, watching as the blue blur zipped down another corridor, setting off explosions in its wake. Yes, how did he? All for One murmured, before a slow, malicious smile curved across his lips. So, the boy wishes to challenge me directly. No mentor, no safety net, just bare defiance. He exhaled through his nose, voice laced with mocking amusement. Very well, ninth wielder of One for All. If it's a lesson in humility you want, I'll be a generous teacher. He turned slightly, voice sharp. Activate the Nomu. Reinforce every site. Garaki nodded quickly, already typing. Understood. His fingers danced violently across the keyboard, commands entering in rapid succession. On the surrounding monitors, container pods across multiple black sites began to flash red. One by one, containment tubes cracked. THOOM. A monstrous fist punched through reinforced glass. Crash. One by one, their fists punched through reinforced doors, breaking free with guttural growls. All for One watched in silence. Let him come, he murmured, more to himself now. Let him see the depth of the abyss he's clawed his way into. Izuku walked alongside Abara, his cheeks burning as he kept glancing at her out of the corner of his eye. Okay, I'm actually on a date with Shiozaki. This is fine, totally fine, I can handle this. He cleared his throat nervously, fumbling for words. So, how have you been? As soon as the words left his mouth, Izuku mentally kicked himself. That's what you open with? Really? Abara turned her head slightly, giving him a small, puzzled smile. I've been well, thank you, she said politely. Though, I'm really glad we're doing this. Izuku blinked at her. She let out a small, almost sheepish sigh, clasping her hands behind her back as they walked. To be honest, I was a bit worried you'd try to back out. I thought maybe you'd get cold feet. Especially I feel like I've coerced you into this. She offered him a quick sideways glance. So I hope you won't be too nervous. I already am. That made Izuku wince slightly, guilt creeping into his tone as he rubbed the back of his neck. Sorry, I didn't mean to make it awkward. It's all right, she replied gently. I just thought, this does give me a chance to get to know you better, she continued, glancing at him from the corner of her eye. If you wouldn't mind. I'd love that, Izuku said quickly, then cleared his throat. I mean, of course, I'm totally open to that. What would you like to know? Abara tilted her head, pretending to think deeply for a moment. Let's start simple, she said with a soft smile. When's your birthday? Izuku blinked again. That wasn't what he expected. Oh, July 15th. What about you? September 8th, she replied, nodding. You're a Cancer then. Why yeah, I guess so. I never really got into astrology, though. He paused, then scratched his cheek. Should I? Is that something you're into? Abara laughed softly, the sound light and genuine. Not seriously, of course, but it's fun. Kuririo and Yanagi tend to go off on tangents about star signs during class. Sometimes it's hard not to get pulled in. Izuku chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I guess it's kind of fun to think about, even if I never know what mine means half the time. There was a brief pause as they walked, the atmosphere between them growing more relaxed with every step. Then Izuku, still a little awkward, glanced at her sideways. So, what's your favorite color? He asked, almost immediately second-guessing how random that sounded. Was that too basic? Should I have asked something deeper? Wait, no, maybe basic is safe. Abara looked at him with a faint smile. White, she said, it represents purity and light. To me, it's the most sincere color there is. Izuku nodded, not really surprised. Yeah, figures. Totally fits her, he thought with a chuckle. I mean, you're kind of like that too. She looked at him, eyes curious. Like what? He turned slightly red. You know, straightforward, honest. You don't hide who you are. Abara gave him a soft smile at that but said nothing, walking in step beside him. They kept chatting casually, sharing favorite foods, quirks about their classmates, and even stories from their training exercises. Slowly but surely, Izuku found himself relaxing, even smiling without worrying about the awkwardness between them. Still, one thought kept circling in his mind. What kind of date is this going to be? He glanced at Abara from the corner of his eye. Knowing her, maybe something traditional. A flower garden, or a sermon at a local chapel. So, Izuku started, trying not to sound too eager. What do you have planned for us today? Abara didn't say anything at first, just offered a small, shy smile. Then she turned a corner, and they came to a sudden stop in front of a bright, slightly worn-down building. The buzzing sound of engines and laughter filled the air. Izuku blinked, staring at the sign that read, Turbo Circuit Go-Karts, Feel the Rush. He uttered, brows knitting in confusion. Come now, Midoriya, she said lightly, though she gave somewhat of a forced smile. You didn't honestly think we'd do something like sit on a blanket and eat sandwiches in the park, did you? Izuku blinked. I kinda did, and I wouldn't have minded, honestly. Still, he smiled back at her, trying to match her energy. No, just surprised, but it's a good kind of surprise. Her expression relaxed slightly, the edges of her smile softening into something more genuine. Good, that's what I hoped. Thud. A charred Nomu collapsed to the scorched floor, its blackened body crumbling to ash on impact. The air was thick with smoke and firelight. Faint whimpers echoed from behind sealed doors, children, terrified, hiding from the destruction. Footsteps crackled across melted tiles as a humanoid figure cloaked in emerald fire strode through the corridor. A Nomu lunged from the ceiling only for a wave of green-hot flame to explode from the intruder's chest, reducing the creature to cinders mid-flight. The being resembled Heat Blast, but something was off. There was no Omnitrix symbol. His flames were a darker shade of green. Geez, the figure muttered, kicking aside a pile of ash, how many of these feather-brained freaks does that bastard have in stock? He raised a hand and fired a concentrated stream of molten plasma, carving through a reinforced steel wall like butter. The metal sagged, glowing red before giving way. I know he's stashed a ton of quirks here, he said aloud, tapping his burning chin with a smoldering finger. Just gotta find the damn vault. Just as he stepped through the warped threshold. Clack, clack, boom. A fist slammed into the ground where he'd just stood, detonating a shockwave that hurled him backward. His feet scraped molten lines into the floor as he skidded to a stop, smirking through the steam. Hey, was wondering if you were still breathing, flower boy. The man who rose from the crater was tall, slender, and disturbingly serene. He wore a white hoodie beneath a pink apron, his head crowned with bright sunflower petals. Oh my, the man said in a high, honeyed tone that made Heat Blast's lip curl. Such big flames you have. Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. What if one of the children got hurt? That wouldn't do at all, mister. He clasped his hands behind his back and tilted his head, his voice soft and syrupy, like a predator pretending to be a friend. You seem lost. Are you looking for your room? I'd be so happy to escort you back. We take care of our special guests here. Heat Blast stared at him for a long moment, then chuckled coldly. Still talking like that, he said, voice low and bitter. God, you sound like a child predator just waiting to have your way with children, you sick fuck. The sunflower man blinked, confused. I'm afraid you have me at a disadvantage, young man. I don't believe we've met before, have we? My name is Haruki Sun, but the children call me Mr. Sunny. Heat Blast's flames flared in response. Oh, we've met, Heat Blast said coolly, but you weren't calling me Mr. back then. He paused. You were calling me. He let out a low, humorless chuckle, then went quiet. Quote. Doesn't matter. Mr. Sunny's wide smile never faltered, but a twitch passed through his sunflower petal face, just under the eye. My, you do have a sharp tongue. But we don't like nasty words in this garden. Then I guess I'll just have to burn the weeds out, Heat Blast growled, stepping forward. The heat in the air spiked, his feet melted into the steel floor with every step. Now, show me the vault. Unless you want to see how fast that face of yours wilts. Mr. Sunny wagged a finger at him playfully. That's not very nice, mister, he said, voice tightening. Talking about hurting my flower patch. Tisk, tisk. His body tensed, muscles bulging unnaturally beneath his skin as a faint golden glow radiated from behind him. A second form began to take shape, taller, bulkier, and in his own image. The glow hardened into a looming figure, a construct, mirroring Mr. Sunny but monstrous in scale. Heat Blast whistled low. Oh, look at that. Super strength and a manifestation type quirk. Let me guess your pathetic excuse for a master handed you some party favors. Mr. Sunny's voice cracked like something snapping inside him as it warped into a grotesque, monstrous mimic of his earlier tone. Mr. Fire Hazard is being very naughty, he said in a low rasp, eyes wide, smile growing too wide. So I'll have to give you a little punishment. With a blur of motion, he lunged forward, his construct crashing ahead of him. Heat Blast reacted instantly, launching himself backward in a burst of flame that lit the corridor ablaze. He skidded to a halt, before hurling a stream of searing fire straight at the golden figure. Foom! The manifestation tanked the flames, shielding the real Mr. Sunny behind it as it marched forward through the fire. Where is it? Heat Blast shouted, voice cutting through the smoke. I know he's got a vault here. Quirk stockpile. One hell of a grab bag, courtesy of your little grave robbing doctor. He thrust his hands forward and unleashed a massive spiral of fire, burning through the wall and part of the golden construct's shoulder. So how about you hand them over before I turn this whole damn orphanage into a crematorium? Mr. Sunny's smile twisted as his golden projection began reforming, bubbling like molten wax as he spoke again. Very naughty, he shrieked. With a distorted howl, he launched himself through the wall of flame, ignoring the searing heat. He broke through with terrifying speed and finally grabbed Heat Blast by the chest. Crack. Gra-ah-h. Heat Blast roared, flames erupting wildly as Mr. Sunny squeezed down with unnatural strength. I need to snuff out this annoying little candle. Burn too bright, and even the sun gets jealous. Sunny bellowed, eyes twitching, spit flying from his grinning teeth. Through the pain, Heat Blast glared back, his eyes glowing like magma. You should have killed me when you had the chance, you Sunny freak. Suddenly, his flames surged violently, spiking in heat and fury, green and orange fire bursting in every direction. Boom! A massive explosion rocked the facility, flames erupted outward, glass shattered, and the building shook as part of it detonated from the sheer thermal output. Outside, debris rained across the yard. Mr. Sunny's charred body was hurled across the grass. He hit the ground with a wet thud, groaning. His sunflower face twisted in pain, and his legs gone, burned down to charred stumps. Inside the orphanage, frightened children screamed from behind reinforced doors, staring wide-eyed at the rising smoke. From the flaming wreckage, Heat Blast staggered forward, his molten skin cracked, parts of his rocky body steaming. He stepped into the open air, eyes locked on Sunny as the burned man began to crawl, leaving scorched handprints behind him. Heat Blast raised one hand, flames gathering into a concentrated, burning orb. Funny, he muttered coldly. You used to say I was one of your favorites. Mr. Sunny wheezed, the smile finally gone, replaced by horror. But then, sirens. A distant whine echoed through the air, growing louder. Flashing red and blue lights lit up the smoke. Pro-hero voices crackled through megaphones. Evac Team 2, move and get those kids out. We got a heavy burn signature prep for a Type B containment. Heat Blast's gaze snapped toward the orphanage. Through the smoke, He saw the children peeking through cracks in the doors, scared, coughing, crying. He clenched his jaw as the fireball in his hand fizzled out. Heat Blast clicked his tongue. TCH. Timing's never on my side. Heat Blast took a step forward, casting shadows over Mr. Sunny's scorched, crawling form. He stared down at the broken man for a long, silent second. Then he stretched his shoulders, cracking his neck. "You get to live today, Mr. Sunny," he said flatly, no heat left in his voice. "But don't mistake it for mercy." Quote. A low, wet cracking sound came from his limbs as the magma skin splintered. His magma skin peeled in steaming chunks, cracking open like a molten cocoon. Fur began to spread in jagged, uneven bursts along his arms and spine, matted with leftover flame. His bones elongated, reshaping into a crouched, feline form. "Gah!" he screamed as with final grunt Fast Track stood where Heat Blast had been. He looked back at Mr. Sunny, a single sharp-toothed grin stretching across his face. "See ya around, flower boy." And then, whoosh, a sonic boom cracked the air as he tore off across the field as the blue barreled through. Down the road, arriving pro heroes were knocked off balance by the sudden rush. One of them stumbled, shielding their face from the dust storm that followed. What the hell was that? Back to Izuku's date. Hua. Abara's voice cracked over the roar of engines as her go-kart wobbled around a corner, tires squealing in protest. Her grip on the steering wheel was deathly tight, knuckles white as her cart slammed down hard after a small bump in the track. Beside her, Izuku zipped past with a breeze, laughing breathlessly. "Shiozaki, how you holding up back there?" he called, glancing over his shoulder with a big grin. Abara's eyes widened as another competitor cut too close in front of her, and she jerked the wheel, nearly overcorrecting. I'm managing," she called back, though her voice cracked at the end and she was very clearly not managing. Izuku slowed just enough to coast alongside her, his cart buzzing smoothly next to hers. He chuckled softly when he saw her clenching the wheel like it was trying to escape. "You're not exactly enjoying this, are you?" he asked, a little sheepish. Abara groaned, her cheeks flushed a deep pink. "No. Not really." She exhaled through her nose and mumbled, "This is much louder and bumpier than I expected." Another bump in the track jolted her seat, and she yelped, momentarily lifting off the ground. Her expression twisted in panic before she forced it back into a composed, neutral look. "But, it's fine," she added quickly, her voice strained but determined. "It's fun. I'm fine." Izuku glanced over from his cart, smiling gently as they rounded a tight bend. "Okay, how about I help you get the hang of this? I've got a few tricks that might." "No," her words cut off as her cart jerked violently to the side, nearly swerving off course. "Ah, mercy," she gasped, barely managing to grab the wheel and steer back onto the track. "I'm fine, Midoriya, truly, there's no need to trouble yourself." But just as she declared that, she accidentally slammed into another cart with a loud thunk. "Ah," she winced, groaning as her forehead slumped against the steering wheel. From the sidelines, a little girl pointed and said loud enough for the racers to hear, "Mommy, she doesn't know how to drive." Abara's cheeks burned crimson. She slumped forward, forehead resting lightly against the wheel. "This is so embarrassing," she muttered, barely audible. Izuku slowed and rolled to a stop nearby, stepping out of his cart. He jogged up to her with an easy smile. "How about I help? I've got an idea, something simple, I promise." Still flustered, Abara gave a slow nod. "If you truly insist." Izuku grinned, already jogging toward the pit to grab an extra cart or maybe talk to the staff. Abara sighed again and slumped back in her seat, cheeks still burning as she muttered, "This is so humiliating." Her hands lightly fidgeted with a few loose vines at her wrist. She stared at the steering wheel, lips pressed in a thin line. Truth was, this wasn't her kind of fun. Not even close. She would have been happier in a quiet little cafe, maybe a corner seat, soft lighting, a pot of tea and a pressed sandwich beside a worn leather Bible. She could have read quietly, maybe talked with Midoriya about something meaningful. But that wasn't what she picked. Because a few weeks ago, she'd just returned from evening training, towel around her neck, when she overheard voices from the living room. "I'm just saying Ashido's gotta be the wild type," Saburaba had said, snickering. "She definitely gives off that teasing, take control vibe." Kaminari laughed. "Man, right, the way she tortures Midoriya in training. Totally tracks." Abara had rolled her eyes and turned to leave until she heard Mineta's voice chime in with a pervy tone. "Uraraka though, I dunno, I bet she's the kinkiest." "Really?" Kaminari laughed. "Totally. The ones who act innocent always have a wild side. She probably says weird stuff when no one's around." Mineta giggled obscenely. Abara shook her head in disgust, but then, "Shiozaki-san, nah, she's boring." That was Kiririo. "Like, the ultimate buzzkill," Saburaba had said, chuckling. "Even her hair looks like a no fun allowed sign," Kaminari snorted. She'd probably quote Bible verses during, Mineta had begun before she tuned them out completely. But those words stuck. Worse, they weren't the first. Back in middle school, she'd overheard similar things. She'd politely declined to attend a classmate's wild party only to be called killjoy. When she refused to laugh at vulgar jokes, she became stuck up. Whenever she politely turned down gossip or petty behavior, there was always a whisper, "Too uptight." Abara sighed quietly, her fingers still clenched around the steering wheel. "I'm not uptight, I'm just not used to this kind of thing." Her cart suddenly jerked beneath her. Huh, she gasped, gripping the wheel tighter as the entire vehicle began to rumble. The frame beneath her shimmered, flickering from plastic to something sleeker, smoother black metal rippling like liquid as glowing green circuitry lit up along the sides. The steering wheel reshaped itself in her hands, emblazoned now with a glowing Omnitrix symbol. Her eyes widened. "Midoriya," a smooth, mechanical voice echoed from within the dashboard. "Yep, it's me. Well, upgrade me." "Yup," came his voice, distorted slightly but unmistakably Izuku's, now sounding more techy. "Figured you could use a more hands-on instructor." The cart fully transformed into a sleek, high-tech machine, glowing softly and humming like something out of a sci-fi dream. Abara blinked. "You became the cart." As her hands remained on the wheel, and for a strange moment, she felt like she was holding him. Her face flushed scarlet. "This feels oddly personal. Does this count as being close?" She cleared her throat and sat up straight, pushing the thought far, far away. I appreciate the gesture." She spoke cautiously, still clearly flustered. "Though I hope this doesn't cross any strange boundaries." Upgrade chuckled from the speakers. "Don't worry, I'm just the cart right now. Totally safe and non-weird." "Probably." Abara wasn't convinced but nodded nonetheless. "Very well, let us proceed." Abara swallowed, then nodded faintly. "All right," she whispered. She tapped the pedal. Vroom. The cart lurched forward, a blur of green light shooting down the track. Whoa, Abara shouted, clinging to the wheel again. Okay, we're easing off, ease off," Upgrade said quickly, his voice still calm but definitely concerned as they skidded slightly before slowing back into a manageable speed. The cart glided smoothly now, far more responsive than before. She could feel subtle corrections happening under her hands, like the vehicle was reading her movements, syncing with her. "There you go," Upgrade said. "Feel that? You don't need to wrestle the wheel so much. Just lean into it." Abara nodded slowly, her breathing leveling out as she took the next curve more gracefully. "Better," she murmured, with a smile. "You've got it," he encouraged, voice warm. "Let the cart do some of the work. Trust me, I've got you." That made her pause. Her blush returned, not out of panic this time, but something softer. "Thanks, Midoriya," she said quietly. The two began gliding through the track, the enhanced cart moving with almost supernatural smoothness. Abara kept both hands tightly on the wheel, her face glowing red as her gaze flicked between the road and the softly pulsing green circuitry beneath her fingers. She swallowed hard, feeling her heartbeat thrum in her ears. "Why does this is oddly intimate." Abara weaved through the final stretch of the track, her expression alight with a mix of thrill and effort. "Whoa," she exclaimed as the cart sped up unexpectedly, still wobbling slightly as she tried to correct her steering. Despite the bumps, a soft smile curved her lips. Her vines fluttered gently in the wind, and even as she clung to the wheel, her laughter quiet and genuine escaped behind a hand. Finally, the cart began to slow and ease to a smooth stop. The engine let out a soft hum before powering down. Upgrade's voice rang out from the dashboard, upbeat and theatrical. "Thank you for choosing Upgrade Motors. Please exit the vehicle safely and don't forget to rate your driver 5 stars." Abara covered her mouth as she let out a restrained giggle. "I must admit, you make for a surprisingly charming mode of transport." She stepped gracefully out of the high-tech cart, looking over her shoulder with a gentle smirk. "Cart upgrade, is that a permanent side job?" The cart rippled like black liquid as Upgrade emerged from the machine. "Only on weekends," he joked, then touched the Omnitrix on his chest. A burst of green light pulsed outward, and in a flash, Izuku stood there again, human once more, and very red in the face. I just thought it'd be easier than explaining everything step by step," he mumbled, scratching the back of his neck. "And not that I think you're bad at driving. I just..." Abara chuckled softly. "It's all right, Midoriya. I enjoyed it more than I expected." She bowed her head slightly. "Thank you." Izuku blinked, then smiled, rubbing the back of his head. Anytime." The two stepped out of the karting area, the sun still hanging pleasantly in the sky. Izuku turned to her with a sheepish smile, rubbing the back of his neck. "So, where to next?" Abara blinked, caught slightly off guard. Oh, yes, one moment." She quickly pulled out her phone, brows furrowing as she scrolled through a short list of ideas she'd saved earlier. Abara blinked, caught off guard by the question. Oh, yes, one moment." She quickly retrieved her phone from her bag, her thumb scrolling through a list she had made earlier that morning just in case. Her eyes darted across the screen. Rock climbing, street market walk, trying a spicy food challenge, flower garden stroll, quiet cafe with scripture-themed poetry books. Her brows knitted together. The climbing wall might be thrilling, but it's too crowded, the market's loud, and spicy food. I don't even like spicy food. She bit her lip. I had written that cafe for last, but it was the one I actually wanted most. Still, her fingers hovered uncertainly over the idea, not bold enough to speak it aloud. Izuku noticed the silence and offered with a slight grin, how about we grab some ice cream first?" He glanced at her sideways. "You know, cool off before we burn up." She startled a bit, then nodded too quickly. "Yes." Realizing how eager she sounded, she gently cleared her throat. "I mean, yes, that would be pleasant." As they began walking toward the nearby parlor they'd passed earlier by the train station, Izuku gave her a curious look. "So, what else did you want to do today, Shiozaki?" he asked. "Anything specific on your list?" Abara's cheeks warmed again as she turned her gaze away. "I was considering perhaps rock climbing. Or maybe visiting a spice-themed food truck," she said quickly. "Or we could take one of those speedboat tours of the river, or..." Her tone didn't even convince herself. She kept her eyes on her phone as she rattled off random suggestions. Izuku tilted his head, clearly confused. I kinda thought we were doing stuff you liked," he said, scratching his cheek. "I mean, those don't really sound like your kind of thing." She looked at him, surprised, and he panicked slightly under her gaze. "And not that I'm saying you can't like those things," he stammered. "If that's what you're into, that's cool. I just meant Abara gave a small sigh and looked away again, her voice quieter. "It isn't." She fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve. "I just didn't want to seem dull." Izuku blinked. "Dull? Why would you think that?" They entered the ice cream shop together, the smell of waffles and sweet cream filling the air. Around them, couples and families sat chatting, colorful desserts in hand. The cozy atmosphere contrasted with Abara's lingering insecurity. As they reached the counter, Abara hesitated, then spoke softly, almost as if she were confessing something sacred. "Truthfully, I would have preferred something simpler. A quiet cafe, something peaceful, good conversation, maybe a slice of cake or a pot of tea." She glanced at him from the corner of her eye. "But, you wouldn't find that very exciting, would you?" Izuku's eyes lit up like a tree on Christmas morning. "Are you kidding? That sounds amazing." He grinned. "Honestly, I'd love that. And if it means I get to learn what kind of tea you like, even better. Abara blinked in surprise, then slowly smiled genuinely, warmly. Chamomile tea, she said quietly. With honey. Izuku nodded with a smile as he stepped up to the counter. Then that's exactly what we'll do right after some ice cream. Abara gave a small nod, tucking a loose vine behind her ear as she turned toward the vendor. I'll have a vanilla cone, please, she said politely. And I'll take a mint chocolate chip in a cup, Izuku added. Back at the orphanage, police officers and pro-heroes flooded the scene, the once hidden facility now reduced to a smoldering ruin. Smoke curled into the night sky as wounded children were carried out and placed under the care of medics and healing quirks alike. A grizzled officer ran a hand through his hair, squinting at the still smoking wreckage. What in Kami's name happened here? He muttered. Another cop knelt near a twisted corpse, lifting the remains with a grunt. His brow furrowed. Sir, this thing, it looks just like those monsters from Hosu. Nomu, someone said from above. With a gust of air and a flurry of feathers, Hawks, the number 3 pro-hero, touched down lightly on the cracked concrete. His wings folded behind him as he glanced over the wreckage. Wow, this place is toast, he remarked, scanning the scene. Someone really let it rip. Was Endeavor here or something? One of the detectives recognized him. Hawks, didn't expect you this far east. Didn't expect a war zone in the middle of nowhere either, Hawks replied with a smirk before his eyes caught the charred Nomu remains. His smile faded slightly. That what I think it is. Yeah, the detective said. Looks like one of those things that attacked Hosu. But there's more. Dozens of piles like that scattered around. Dozens, Hawks echoed, eyebrows rising. Closer to 100, honestly, the man replied, gesturing across the field. All burned to ash. Quote. Hawks crouched next to one of the scorched piles, poking at it with the tip of a feather. Quote. And no collateral from the look of it. Kids are safe. Most of the buildings intact. Barely, a firefighter grunted as he passed. But yeah, we didn't see what caused the blaze. We showed up after the big boom, but damn those flames though. He whistled. Hate to see the fucker that made those monsters. Hawks perked up like a cat hearing a can open. You didn't see it happen, but you saw the flames. The firefighter paused. Yeah, weird ones. They were green, like bright green. Big explosion lit up the sky for a few seconds like a signal flare. Damn near melted our hoses before we got close. Hawks straightened, eyes narrowing. Green flames. His mind flashed briefly not just to Izuku Midoriya, but to the footage he'd skimmed off the USJ incident and what he did to the Nomu. Interesting, he muttered aloud. Then, with a lopsided grin, he turned to the detective. Only know one person with green firepower strong enough to vaporize a Nomu, he muttered under his breath. Then louder, almost amused. You guys got any camera footage from the area? Street cams, traffic drones, anything? Maybe. Still pulling data, one officer replied. Why? Hawks didn't answer right away. He stepped forward again, scanning the blackened landscape. Just got a hunch, he said, and I'm really hoping I'm wrong. This doesn't make any damn sense. A detective hunched over his tablet, eyes wide and hands trembling as he tapped the screen, repeatedly scrolling, refreshing, scanning files with increasing urgency. No, what the hell? The sudden outburst drew everyone's attention. Officers, medics, and pro-heroes turned toward him as he stood abruptly, his face contorting into something between horror and rage. His voice rose, drawing glances from officers and heroes alike. Hawks tilted his head, curiosity narrowing his gaze. Stop that ambulance, he shouted, already storming across the lot toward the paramedics loading Mr. Sunny into the emergency vehicle. The paramedics, confused but obeying the urgency in his voice, slammed the brakes on the stretcher's transport. The detective wrenched open the back doors, eyes wild as he grabbed the rails and stared down at the burned, barely conscious form of Mr. Sunny, still smiling weakly beneath bloodied gauze and burned tissue. You son of a bitch, the detective growled, stepping up into the bay, his hands trembling. Who the hell are you? What were you doing with those kids? Have you been running a goddamn slaughterhouse? Sir, please. The medics moved to restrain him. Sir. Another paramedic grabbed at his shoulder. He's in critical condition. I don't give a damn if he's dying, I'll kill him myself. He snarled, swinging his elbow back hard. It cracked into the paramedic's side, knocking the wind out of him. Two more officers rushed in, grabbing at the detective's arms, struggling to pull him off the vehicle. As Sunny didn't respond, but he kept humming faintly, his smile never fading. You think that stupid grin's gonna save you? Huh, you sick, smiling piece of shit. We got over 20 kids in there, alive, and every one of 'em was declared dead months ago. He thrashed against them, one hand still trying to reach Sunny as the burned man gave a soft, lazy laugh, like a drugged-up child being rocked to sleep. You were running a fucking orphanage as cover, the detective snarled. You sick child-snatching predator. What were you even doing to them? Experimenting. Selling them. You goddamn pedophile. Sir. Stop. Get away from the patient. Step out of the ambulance. Now. That's enough. A paramedic yelled, grabbing his arm, but the detective shoved him off. I swear to God I'll. Swish. Whoa, easy there, detective, Hawks said, descending beside the vehicle with practiced calm. He held a hand up to the nearby officers. Let's not start brawling next to the kids, yeah. The detective shook off the restraint, chest heaving. He glared at Hawks, then turned the screen toward him. Just look, you need to see this. Hawks raised an eyebrow and took the device. One glance, then another. His eyes narrowed. Files, governmental records, medical tags, photos of every child currently being treated by the emergency teams, each cross-checked against the National Registry of Missing Persons. Each file tagged as deceased, some for months, others for years, all listed as found dead or presumed dead after disappearances from across Japan. Quote, what the hell, years worth of cold cases. Every one of those kids had been declared dead. That can't be right, Hawks murmured. He scrolled faster. This one died 3 years ago. This one, last winter. But I just saw her getting patched up in the tent out there. All of them, the detective said, voice raw. Every single kid we found here officially marked as dead or disappeared years ago. Some of them even had bodies identified. The detective couldn't imagine their families believing their children had died. What kind of monster does that? Hawks didn't respond immediately. He watched Mr. Sunny through the open doors, the man humming faintly to himself, half-conscious and still wearing that serene, sick smile. He snapped the tablet shut. Get him under secure custody. I want 2 heroes on him at all times, and I want access to every missing child report in the last 10 years. The detective nodded grimly as officers and medics began moving into motion. Hawks stood still, wings slightly flared, his eyes fixed on Mr. Sunny as he was strapped back onto the gurney. You and I are gonna have a long, cozy talk, Hawks muttered under his breath. And I promise, I'm gonna enjoy every second of it. Back to Izuku. Abara and Izuku stepped out of the ice cream shop, each holding a cone in hand as they strolled down the quiet sidewalk. The sun cast warm light across the street, their shadows stretching out ahead of them. They walked side by side, occasionally glancing at each other but mostly focused on their slowly melting treats. They both leaned down to take a careful lick of their ice cream at the same time, only to glance up and awkwardly meet eyes mid-bite. Izuku quickly looked forward, cheeks tinted pink. Okay. Don't be weird. Say something normal, he thought to himself. So, do you like your ice cream? He asked, voice just a little too nervous. Abara turned toward him with a light nod. It's delicious. Thank you, she said sincerely, then glanced at her cone. Though, I know vanilla is considered a rather plain choice. Some might even say boring. It's not boring, Izuku blurted, a bit louder than he meant to. Abara raised an eyebrow at him, amused by his sudden passion. I see, she murmured, a small smile tugging at her lips. She covered her mouth with her hand and let out a light, musical giggle. I didn't realize you felt so strongly about vanilla. Izuku's face flushed. I mean, I get why people say that, but it's really good. Simple doesn't mean boring. Izuku scratched the back of his neck, laughing a little nervously. Yeah, I guess that's kinda how I feel about mine too. Abara raised a curious brow and tapped a finger to her chin. Let me guess, is yours that all-might triple-decker sundae? Izuku flinched, nearly choking on his next bite. And no, I mean not everything I like is all-might related. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, then what is it? He looked away, cheeks burning. Okay, first off, it's not called the all-might triple-decker. It's just Golden Crunch Explosion. Abara giggled again, clearly enjoying his embarrassment. I figured, she said warmly. It's kind of sweet, though. I like how passionate you are. Izuku blinked, then looked down at his cone, lips curling into a smile. Thanks. As they continued walking side by side, Abara gently tried to keep the conversation going. So, you admire All Might a lot, don't you? She asked, glancing at him from the corner of her eye. Izuku perked up, caught a little off guard, but smiled almost instinctively. I mean, yeah. He rubbed the back of his neck, that boyish grin spreading across his face. He's just amazing. The first time I saw him saving people with that big smile, I knew right then I wanted to be a hero. Abara smiled softly, watching him from the corner of her eye. There was something pure about the way he spoke, like the child inside him still lit up whenever he mentioned his hero. That kind of passion was rare. What about you? Izuku asked, looking her way. Were you inspired by All Might, too? Abara tilted her head slightly, considering her answer. No, not necessarily, she said gently. I've never been too drawn to him, personally. That stopped Izuku in his tracks for a second. Really? He blinked. But All Might is just. How can you not like the symbol of peace and hope and... He launched into mutter mode so fast she barely caught half of what he was saying. Abara raised a hand with a small laugh. Yes, I know the man is remarkable, she said with a small, patient smile. There's no denying that. She looked ahead for a moment, her smile faltering just slightly. But the scriptures remind us not to place too much reverence in any one man. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Her tone wasn't preachy, it was quiet, almost apologetic. Izuku blinked. Oh, wow, I never thought about it like that. Growing up, we weren't really allowed to praise him. Or heroes in general, really, Abara said quietly. My parents always said it was dangerous to let your heart cling to people who could fall just like the rest of us. Her voice was calm, but Izuku sensed the way she gripped the hem of her sleeve a little tighter. Especially someone like All Might. Someone people treat like. She trailed off, searching for the right word. Like he can do no wrong. She paused again, then added quietly, in my house, he wasn't to be talked about. Before she could respond, Abara's expression shifted in an instant. Her eyes flicked up ahead, locking onto someone in the crowd. Her face drained of color, and she took a sudden, sharp breath. Abara? Izuku asked, but she didn't respond. Her hand darted out and grabbed his wrist. Come on, she whispered. Wait. Whoa. Izuku stumbled as she tugged him down a narrow side path between two small shops. They ducked past a few crates and behind a vending machine tucked in the alley's shade. Abara peeked back around the corner cautiously, keeping low. Izuku panted lightly, blinking at her in confusion. What was that about? Her hand slowly dropped from his wrist as she whispered, almost to herself, I think that was Pastor Odorai. Pastor? Izuku echoed, concern in his voice. Abara didn't respond immediately. Her hands were trembling at her sides. Are you okay? He asked, a little more gently. She nodded too quickly. I can't be seen like this, she whispered. Shiozaki, he said softly, who are we hiding from? Abara flinched at the question, then let out a quiet sigh as she turned to face him. My pastor. His name is Odorai. He's from my family's church back in Kanagawa Prefecture, she explained, her voice low. If he saw me here, walking with a boy, like this. She trailed off, her eyes flicking to Izuku's cone, then to the slight blush still on his cheeks, the closeness of their shoulders, and the informal nature of their outing. With whom? Shiozaki-san. Abara flinched. Slowly, they both turned. A tall man stood at the edge of the alley, dressed in a crisp black suit and white clerical collar. A small leather satchel hung under one arm. His black hair was slicked back with meticulous care, and a pale scar shaped like a crosscut across his left cheek. His dark eyes swept across the pair slowly, pausing just a second too long on Obara's casual attire and uncovered hair. "Shiozaki," he said flatly, tone neutral but heavy. "Shouldn't you be in your dormitory? I imagine your instructors would expect you to use your free time more wisely. Perhaps reviewing scripture." Obara tensed. "Today is my off day, Pastor Odurai. UA allows breaks for students." He tilted his head slightly, the faintest frown as his eyes drifted toward Izuku. Izuku, feeling the weight of the man's scrutiny, stepped forward with an awkward smile. Hello, sir. I know who you are," Odurai interrupted coldly. "Izuku Midoriya, the next symbol of peace." The way he said it like a bitter aftertaste made Izuku falter mid-step. The title was spoken not with pride or admiration, but disgust. Yes, Odurai went on, almost to himself, paraded across news outlets, glorified everywhere for so-called heroic deeds. A boy who places false hopes similar to the man he wishes take the place of, worshipped. How fitting. Izuku's smile faded. I'm not trying to replace anyone," he said, confused but respectful. "I just want to help people like All Might did." "Yes. Like All Might," he repeated, voice hollow. "Another man the world placed its hopes on. Built shrines in his name. Shout his catchphrases like hymns. And now they hand the mantle to a child and pray he will save them." He shook his head, turning the weight of his disapproval back to Obara. "So then, why are the two of you alone? Wandering the city as if you're on some sort of outing?" He didn't say the word date, but Izuku could tell he wanted to. "Need I remind you we're granted the privilege of attending UA not to indulge, but to serve. You are not here to fraternize, Shiozaki." Pastor Odurai sighed through his nose, quiet but disappointed. "No matter. I will inform your parents. They'll wish to know where your priorities lie." "Pastor, please," she said softly. "It was just a short outing. Nothing inappropriate. I've abided by my commitments." Odurai didn't even acknowledge the plea. "I'll inform your parents," he said simply, turning on his heel without waiting for her reply. Obara's eyes widened. Her voice cracked. "Please don't," she said quickly, almost desperately. "They'll misunderstand." He stopped. Just long enough to look over his shoulder. The sharpness of his eyes made her fall silent instantly. "Then perhaps you should be more mindful of what might cause misunderstanding." With that, he walked away. To say the meeting with Pastor Odurai had killed the mood would be a massive understatement. Now, with the sky tinged in soft gold and fading blue, Izuku and Obara walked side by side in silence. She kept her head lowered, hands folded tightly in front of her, and walked just a little farther from him than before. She had always been the quiet type, but this felt different. He could feel it in the air between them, heavier somehow. Izuku glanced at her, concerned. "Hey, are you okay?" Obara didn't look up. Her voice was quiet, barely above a whisper. "Yes. I'm all right," but the way she said it made Izuku doubt it immediately. Still, he didn't press. Instead, he glanced across the street and spotted a quiet little cafe tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore. An idea sparked, and he quickly turned to her with a hopeful grin. "Actually wait, look," he said, pointing gently. "That cafe didn't you mention earlier you liked places like that? Cozy ones with good sandwiches." She blinked, glancing up for the first time in several minutes. The corner of her lips curved slightly, just a faint trace of warmth returning to her face. "I did," she said softly. "Then let's go," Izuku said with a grin. "I bet their tea's pretty good too." For a moment, Obara just looked at him. Not with guilt, not with fear, but something gentler. She gave him a small smile. It was the kind of smile that didn't erase everything, but maybe made it bearable for a little while. "All right," she said, "I'd like that. By the time they reached the UA dorm gates, the sun had dipped low, washing the sky in a gentle orange hue that bled into the clouds. It was quiet now, just the sound of their footsteps on the path and the occasional chirp of birds settling for the evening. Obara walked with her hands folded in front of her, her expression calm, almost serene as she looked out at the horizon. But even with the soft glow of the sunset on her face, Izuku could see something lingering, something unspoken. She looked beautiful like this, even with the faint sadness in her eyes. Still, he cleared his throat and forced himself to speak up. Hey, so, that was your pastor, huh? Abara's expression dimmed slightly, her eyes falling to the path ahead. Yes, Pastor Odorai has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. She sighed. I should have known this would turn out poorly. Izuku's heart sank a little, slowing his step. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. And no, not you, Abara said quickly, turning to him with a small shake of her head. That's not what I meant. It's just. Her gaze dropped, and a soft blush crept onto her cheeks. I just meant, I knew someone might see us. My family, they're not exactly fond of me. She trailed off, face flushing. Spending time with boys. Izuku blinked. Why not? Is that a church rule or something? Abara gave a soft laugh weary. Not exactly a rule, but more, a principle. My parents believe courtship should come only after a person has fully matured. Emotionally, spiritually. She paused, then added more quietly, to them, even just sharing time like this, it's something sacred. Something that shouldn't be taken lightly. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, a sheepish grin tugging at his lips. Yeah, I get that. Kind of. My mom's not strict or anything, but if she saw me holding hands with someone, she might just faint on the spot. That earned a quiet giggle from Abara, soft and barely restrained, but real. Oh dear, she murmured, a hand lightly covering her mouth. That bad? Izuku chuckled. Worse, she's already convinced I'm secretly dating Uraraka or Kendo or something. Abara blinked. Really? Yeah, he said with a helpless shrug. I told her that wasn't even remotely true, and she just nodded and said, Give it time. Abara raised a brow, amused. And has it? And no, I mean not like that. I mean they're great, he stumbled over his words, turning slightly red. Anyway, when I invited them over once, she cried so much she nearly flooded the apartment. Abara let out a breathy laugh, a full one this time. PFF'd. She just kept saying, my baby's growing up. Like it was the end of the world, Izuku added, chuckling at the memory. Abara gave a surprised snort, then covered her mouth again, but this time she couldn't hold back the full laugh that followed. PFF'd. Oh, my. Seeing her genuinely laugh lit something warm in Izuku's chest. She slowed a bit, turning her gaze to him with a faint blush still on her cheeks. Well, she said quietly, for what it's worth. I'm glad I spent the day with you. Even if it wasn't something my family would have approved of. Izuku turned to her, surprised by the honesty. His smile returned, more gentle now. Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed it. Abara and Izuku were laughing as they approached the doors of Heights Alliance, their steps light despite the long day. Yep, full-on waterworks, Izuku said between chuckles. Cheers, tissues, and she whispered, my baby's growing up, like I was announcing an engagement or something. Abara laughed so hard she had to dab a tear from the corner of her eye. You and your mother truly have a sacred bond, she said warmly. Where is he? Ochako's panicked voice cracked across the common room as she stood with her phone clutched tight in her hand. Momo looked like she'd just run a marathon, hand clutched tightly over her heart. He said he was going to visit his mother. Why would he lie about that? Is he answering his phone? Kaminari asked, nervously pacing. He's always answering it, even when he's in class. Why isn't he answering now? Monoma's voice was sharper than usual. What kind of idiot picks a fight with 10 Nomu alone? Even Midoriya wouldn't do something that reckless. Then, guys. Dekiru. Ochako shot forward like a bullet, throwing her arms around him with a cry. Are you okay? Are you hurt? You're not bleeding anywhere, right? Izuku blinked, caught off guard by the hug and sudden onslaught. You Uraraka, he stammered, blushing. The rest of the class rushed in behind her like a wave, surrounding him in seconds. Dekiru, you're not injured, are you? We should get you checked out right away. Ochako's voice trembled as she pulled back, eyes scanning him up and down in a frenzy. She then froze. So did everyone else. One by one, Their eyes roamed over Izuku's body, shirt slightly wrinkled, but otherwise completely intact. She blinked. Why, you're not injured? Her tone shifted to confused relief, like her brain was trying to catch up. Izuku tilted his head. Injured. He looked at Abara for backup, but the girl beside him looked just as lost. Momo stepped forward, gently cupping his chin, inspecting his face. There's no bruising, no swelling, nothing, but we saw. Did you go to recovery girl already? Suyu asked, her tone cautious but hopeful. And no, why would I even need to? Izuku replied, gently lowering Momo's hands from his face. The class looked at him like he'd sprouted a second head. Bro, you're not messing with us, right? Kirishima asked, eyes wide. Were you hit on the head so hard you forgot the fight? Monoma asked with a raised brow, his usual smugness replaced by honest confusion. Maybe he is in shock, Kaminari said. Okay. Zero, help me get him to the couch. Careful. Hey guys, wait. Izuku struggled as he was guided to sit, the room bustling around him like he'd come back from war. Midoriya, Iida said firmly, I know you have a tendency for recklessness, but what you did today goes beyond that. We all saw it. I didn't even know you could switch forms, Kaminari added. That thing you did with Heat Blast and Fast Track was insane. What are you talking about? Izuku stood up suddenly, looking at them like they were the ones who needed medical help. You guys sound like I just fought someone. Everyone fell silent again, eyes darting between each other. Shoto, who'd remained calm amid the chaos, quietly picked up the remote. Without a word, he clicked on the screen. This, he said. Boom. A deafening crash filled the room as the image of a skyscraper being torn apart flashed across the screen. Shards of glass exploded outward as a dark shape was dragged down the side of the building, metal groaning under the impact. Civilians screamed, scrambling for cover. Then the dragging stopped, and whatever it was hurled from the structure like a missile. Boom. Crash. The figure hit the truck with bone-crunching force, crumpling the vehicle like a soda can before a secondary explosion erupted. Fire and smoke billowed outward as panicked civilians on the shaky footage screamed and shielded their faces from the blast. The screen shook as the camera person backed up fast, the image jittery until from within the flames, something huge began to move. Lumbering through the fire like a demon from a demon crawling its way out of hell, a towering Nomu 10 feet tall, shaped like a scorpion. Its brain still grotesquely exposed, but its lower half coiled with segmented legs and a massive scorpion tail that cracked the asphalt with. R-A-A-A-A-A-A-A-H-H. It bellowed, voice deep and distorted, shaking the camera. The scream was so shrill and loud it caused the bystanders in the footage and some watching in the dorm to wince and cover their ears. The Nomu's roar rattled the phone mic so hard the footage went briefly to static. Then, boom, a second crash off-screen and something slammed down from above. The ground cracked beneath it as dust and concrete blasted into the air. The phone's camera trembled, trying to focus through the dust cloud. A voice came through the noise. You're really starting to piss me off. The camera steadied just in time to catch the figure step forward from the crater. Red skin, black and green shirt, 4 thick, muscular arms, 4 glowing green eyes. Abara gasped. That's. Izuku stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. His eyes locked on the screen. Quote. 4 arms. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.